Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are in the chamber and for those who are joining us online, my name is Stan Fleming. I have the privilege of serving tonight as mayor and chair of our council. And with that, I would like to call this regular meeting of the University Place City Council for Monday, July 20th to order. With that said, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Figueroa.
Present.
Councilmember Boykin is excused. Councilmember Cunningham.
Here.
Councilmember Wood is excused. Councilmember Grassi.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey.
I'm here.
Mayor Fleming.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's move to item number 3, our pledge. I'm going to ask Councilmember Cunningham, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Okay. Let's move to item number 4, the approval of the agenda. I'll call for a motion to approve our agenda tonight. Are there any objections to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as it stands.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's properly moved and seconded. And hearing none, the agenda is approved. Let's move to item number 5. This is our presentation tonight by Senator Tawana Nobles. Hi, Senator Nobles, and welcome to the chamber tonight.
Thank you for having me, Council.
Ma'am, if you could speak right into that mic, they're kind of sensitive.
Absolutely. Can you all hear me well?
Yeah.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
More. Okay. Got it.
You got to be right up close.
I love it. Thank you. Well, thank you all for having me. Actually, this makes it, I'm going to use my notes on here. Perfect. I'm going to test. Excellent. Clicker. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm State Senator Tawana Nobles. So proudly represent the 28th Legislative District and have been serving in the legislature for 6 years. Excited to present a legislative recap. Is someone a timekeeper for me? I have like 10, 15 minutes.
That's fine. Whatever time you need, Senator.
Okay. Well, thank you. I do appreciate being here. So I'll go through my session recap. I'll also focus on some of the work that we've done specifically for the 28th, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. And I'll make sure I walk through what I know are your legislative priorities, or were your priorities for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Well, I'm sure the council has heard time and time again that this was a very challenging budget year for Washington State. We entered the session facing flat revenue growth, rising costs, and growing uncertainty connected to federal decisions, and that created a very difficult budget environment for the state of Washington, no different than many of our local jurisdictions in other states across the nation, but it meant that we had to make thoughtful choices and in some cases very difficult choices here in our state. Even in a constrained year, we did remain very focused on making sure that we kept Washington State moving forward and that we were protecting services that we know families rely on here in Washington State. In the legislature, we have House and Senate chambers. We also have Democratic and Republican caucuses, and our caucus priorities this year was to protect students and working families from harmful cuts, work to preserve essential services like education, healthcare, and public safety, stay committed to expanding opportunity through education and workforce pathways, continue working toward a fair and sustainable future for Washington State, and these priorities help to guide our budget decisions and our policy work throughout session. It was really important to me that I listen to residents. I launched a survey at the beginning of session asking residents what their priorities were. Also, I have the privilege of meeting with so many Washingtonians, including many folks from this council, many constituents, but also many different advocacy groups and lobbyists, and so I get lots of feedback. But I was able to make sure I did a check-in with constituents directly to hear what priorities are, what are listed here on the screen. So housing affordability, community safety, healthcare affordability, environmental protection, access to early learning and childcare. Residents also talked about the pressures that they are feeling every single day, the rising costs of food, healthcare, housing and rent, transportation, utilities, and education and student debt. And these are not abstract policy discussions. These are daily realities for our families here in the 28th and also across Washington state. These are the realities for seniors, for students, for working families, and those concerns are very much a part of our decision-making this session. I serve as vice chair of the Early Learning and K-12 Committee, and we spend a lot of time protecting K-12 education this session. Education remained one of my top priorities, but with how much of our state budget goes towards K-12 education, it remained a priority for our caucus. Even in a very difficult budget year, we made no cuts to constitutionally protected basic education funding. I will also be the first to tell you we continue to underfund public education in Washington state. We continue to underfund basic education in Washington state. So I'm not jumping up and down at the fact that there were no cuts. When I serve on the school board in University Place, I hear from superintendents all across our region, and I know that Washington state needs to do a better job. We maintain major investments from the previous biennium and continued support for special education, school meals, and school operating costs. I championed the bill just last session to increase funding for MSOC, or materials, supplies, and operating costs. Again, I continue to hear from superintendents that gratitude, they're grateful for the increase. It is still not enough, so there is more work that needs to be done. We continue protecting students in some new ways this session, including standing up for student privacy and fairness as technology evolves. I worked on a bill really looking at artificial intelligence and student safety and how we can best implement AI technologies in schools and also protect students. I continue to support efforts that will ensure students see themselves reflected in stories and histories taught in our schools, because we know that representation does matter. And students deserve to have access to a fuller, more honest understanding of our shared history. I enjoy serving as vice chair of our Early Learning and K-12 Committee, but I serve as chair of our Senate Higher Education and Workforce Development Committee. That is truly a privilege. I get to spend quite a bit of time on our higher education campuses. Of course, many of those here in the South Puget Sound, but just last week I was at WSU visiting with Bears and in their nuclear center, talking about some of their work to train students in nuclear jobs. And WSU is just doing a really good job. Yes, making sure that they continue to expand their agricultural programs, but they too are just thinking about the future and how technology, but also nuclear energy can continue to play a role. In higher education, we protected state financial aid programs this year, and we preserved access to higher education for low-income students, youth experiencing foster care, and underserved communities. This year, Senate Bill 5963, which I sponsored, aligned our Passport to Careers program with our Washington College Grant eligibility. What that means is students who are experiencing homelessness or experiencing foster care will automatically qualify for the Washington College Grant instead of them having to prove, yet again, that they're low income or that they are living with foster parents or just some other hurdle. We already know that these students are experiencing some of the highest burdens and barriers, and that these are oftentimes or almost always low-income students, and they should automatically be eligible for our Washington College Grant. So fewer barriers for those students. We focused on reducing administrative spending rather than student-facing services. Again, I hear from higher education institutions on how hard it is. They are working on shoestring budgets, trying to provide the best experiences for students, but each time the legislature asks them to make cuts, it does make it more challenging to provide even quality education on our higher education institutions. And there was lots of conversation around, well, should tuition increase? Should there be a greater barrier on students if the state is cutting funding for our higher education institutions? And so we continue to work in partnership to make sure that student basic needs, student support services, student tuition is always considered, even in the most difficult times. But the legislature does have a high expectation for all agencies and higher education institutions receiving public dollars that they relook at programs and services and really try to cut things that are not essential and make those difficult decisions at a time when all budgets are tight. We continue supporting FAFSA and WAFSA completion. This interim, I launched a FAFSA completion tour, and I've been visiting schools, encouraging students and families to complete the FAFSA and WAFSA, because Washington State has one of the most robust financial aid offerings across the nation. But if you pair it with federal financial aid, it will significantly reduce the financial burden for our students in Washington State. So we just want to communicate what's available to students. We don't control the federal program. We don't get to change the federal program. That is up to our federal delegation to oversee those federal programs. But we can champion student completion of these programs. And you probably saw a recent announcement that the governor is going to introduce, or the governor has a priority to require FAFSA completion as a graduation requirement, or WAFSA completion, or students can opt out because there are multiple reasons why families may not want to share data, may not feel safe doing so, may not want to complete FAFSA, have other plans. And to me, the governor's priority, it works for me as long as there's an opt-out, considering FAFSA and WAFSA completion won't work for every family. So I'll begin to move. I'm very passionate about education. I could talk about this all day, every day, because educating our youngest constituent, my youngest constituent, our youngest residents, is truly what I see as a pathway to a stronger economy. But I'll move through some of these a little bit quicker so I can get to some of our more focused work for University Place. But we did strengthen some of our education policy. We improved school safety and student protections. We increased support and transparency in special education. One thing that was really important to me is our expansion to access to early learning for military families through our ECAP program. That's the Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program. This year, I was able to help support legislation to make sure that our military community can access that program, and we ensure that protections remain in place for our unhoused students. Now, lots of talk this year about the work that we have done around taxes, including the millionaire's tax. I will say what we're trying to do in Washington State is build a more fair tax code. And there are lots of proposals that can be looked at. I do think that we need to have a comprehensive approach to doing so. But there are 49 senators and twice as many House members, and as you can imagine, it's really difficult for us all to come to agreement on how we have a tax code that can work for all of our constituents and all of our districts. So we had very important conversations about tax fairness. Washington State has one of the most regressive tax systems in our nation, and the millionaire's tax begins to address some of that imbalance. The millionaire's tax asks the wealthiest households to contribute more toward investments like education and child care and health care. This policy also supports long-term fiscal sustainability, and it will expand the working family's tax credit. The full impact of the millionaire's tax will take some time for us to be able to see, but making this decision was about building a stronger and more balanced future for Washington State. We also spent time lowering costs. Affordability remained at front and center of our work in the legislature. We expanded small business tax relief. We increased access to the working family's tax credit. We reduced costs on everyday essentials. We codified the community reinvestment program. I do want to say, for those folks who are listening who run youth development programs, Ed Collaborative in Tacoma has community reinvestment program funds, also called CRP, and just today they released their grant application for programs that are seeking out funding for youth programs. So if you've been waiting to launch that summer program for young people or just do something for youth programs, and it's for nonprofit, for-profit, other entities, but Ed Collaborative just opened a grant, and they have 3 cycles. They'll do rolling reviews of applications, so please look into those funds. And we know with all of this work and lowering costs for families are still feeling very tight budgets. So our work this session reflected that reality, but there is more work that we have to do that is ahead of us. Housing affordability was one of the biggest challenges that my constituents raised with me. We continue focusing on increasing supply and reducing barriers to housing development this session. That included permitting reforms, opening additional land for housing, strengthening renter protections and transparency. And this will be ongoing work. I offered this to some of the council members, but I'll say it here publicly as we're working on changes to housing and trying to just create more housing supply. I welcome the City of University Place to work with me anytime. If there are amendments needed to legislation, if you feel like there is more that we can do to right-size legislation so that it works for residents here in University Place or their housing goals in University Place, I can't guarantee that I can make a change, but I'm always happy to propose an amendment, propose a change to help the city to communicate its needs and its priorities. Public safety and public trust, another one of our priorities. We advanced work around accountability and professionalism and public trust. This included officer certification standards, greater transparency around technology and data usage. We also passed the Ebony Alert Bill, which is continued safeguards, improving tools like we also passed the Ebony Alert Bill and continued improving safeguards involving tools like automated license plate recognition, because we know that public trust and public safety go hand in hand, and communities deserve to have public trust and public safety. We tried our best to make responsible budget choices, and I want to highlight some of the other things that we did through this session. Yes, we protected classrooms and essential services whenever it was possible. Still, we made some very difficult cuts, and the budget writers are already telling us, as we're thinking about legislation heading into 2027, that we can expect another difficult budget year, and we can expect additional cuts. But this year, we focused reductions away from core services, and we minimized harm where we could. I'm also proud of several of the investments that our budget made. $1 million was invested in a statewide birth doula hub and referral system, and this is work that I've been engaged in for many years now, and that was a request that I made to the legislature in partnership with Doulas for All. We've been working on standing up this doula hub and referral system. It has been very successful, but it only works if it has the continued funding to be able to serve doulas across our state. There was restoration of $3.5 million for Treehouse's graduation success program supporting youth experiencing foster care. Those funds were cut just in 2025, and so the legislature saw fit that it restore some of those funds back to Treehouse. These investments reflect a commitment to supporting people across different stages of life and removing barriers to opportunity. Most proud of the work that specifically impacted the 28th Legislative District, investments that support health and infrastructure, education and economic stability. I wanted to make sure that what was done for the 28th reflected my commitment and my seatmates' commitment to improving quality of life in our communities. $241 million was invested alone in transportation here in the 28th Legislative District. Transportation is essential to how people live and move through our region. Some of this funding included safety improvements along SR7, transit investments, safe routes to school investments, I-5 corridor improvements connected to JBLM and also Nisqually Delta, and Tacoma Narrows Bridge preservation. There were also investments supporting regional mobility and ferry land improvements benefiting Anderson Island and Steilacoom Island. Those improvements matter for reliability, accessibility, and also local mobility. In the city of University Place, it actually has been quite a joy over the past 6 years to receive requests directly from the City of University Place or projects that would impact the City of University Place, and know that in the Senate, I get to sponsor those requests and help to get money directly to the city through our local capital funding. These investments strengthen the infrastructure and community assets that University Place residents rely on every day, from sewer and wastewater improvements to transportation planning and health services. So funding for projects like Leech Creek, the 57th Avenue Sewer Project, Day Island Bridge Design Project, helps to improve public safety, helps to protect the environment, and prepare community for future growth. While not sitting in University Place, I also was able to support the Children's Therapy Center that serves our entire region, including many of our young people here in University Place. And also in 2026 and 2024, provided investment for the inclusive playground at Cirque Park, which is expanding access so that children and families of all abilities have opportunities to thrive and learn and play together. These state investments reflect a commitment of improving quality of life, ensuring University Place remains a strong place to live, to work, and to raise a family. More capital investments for the 28th Legislative District. The Alameda Lighting Safety Project, $500,000 was allocated to that, about a total of $20.4 million in capital investments. $22,000 I was able to sponsor for current house upgrades, and years ago I did another sponsorship of funding for support at the current house, $206,000 to Fort Steilacoom Park preservation, Huffman Hill seismic improvements. These are across the district. Lakewood Nourish Market and Connection Center, which serves a high population of community members in Lakewood and University Place and Faircrest. Nourish provides food services, offers a food bank, but also allows community members to come in, have a solution to food insecurity with dignity, and they're building a new center that will be close to Clover Park Technical College, just right across the street, and grateful because the 28th Legislative District really relies on those resources, and I was happy to champion the capital investments that are listed on this page. So University Place had lots of really great legislative priorities. I see myself as a partner. When you develop your priorities for 2027, while the legislature can't fulfill all of our caucus priorities, all of our state priorities, all of the Senate and House priorities, all of the community's priorities together collectively, especially when we're saying a lot of the same thing, we can really see some progress happen. And so as you continue to develop your priorities, I want to continue to know them and make sure that I am incorporating those priorities in my work, but I wanted to walk through your priorities based on my knowledge. So as we prepare for next legislative session, I look forward to continuing a partnership with the city. We've already shown that strong state and local partnerships can accomplish a lot through investments that strengthen infrastructure, public spaces, and community services. So yes, the city can submit a funding request through our local capital projects, and I can sponsor that request to assist with funding. But also, as I mentioned before, through policy, I want to make sure that I'm supporting policies that are important to the City of University Place, so that we can make sure that with clear priorities, we can see well-developed projects that best serve the city. So I will keep University Place at the forefront of my mind and at the table when having conversations, and I want to make sure that we're building on your policies of public safety, police recruitment, infrastructure investment, housing affordability, local planning and design tools, indigent defense funding, and then, of course, making sure that we keep an eye on Alameda lighting and sidewalks, traffic signal modernization, Day Island flood resiliency, continued improvements at Cirque Park, and City Hall emergency backup power. And again, your priorities will continue to progress, and I will continue to be here as long as I'm in this role to be a partner to support you. So looking ahead, the work that I get to do in the legislature is making sure that state government delivers real results for communities. I really enjoy these presentations because we can provide visuals and I can speak directly to the council and to University Place residents who are listening about the work that we're doing in the legislature. As you all know, leadership is not about making everyone happy, but it is about having very clear goals and values and doing the best thing for the greatest amount of people that you are serving. And that is what I show up to do. So whether we're talking about safer infrastructure, stronger local economies, more housing options for Washingtonians, public investments that improve everyday quality of life. I won't be able to solve these problems by myself. The 28th Legislative District Delegation won't be able to solve these problems by ourselves, but each session, working together, we can continue to strengthen our foundation. So I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish together. I want to build on the progress that we've made. I want to be a good representative for the city of University Place and the needs that we have here. I want to continue to strengthen our workforce and education pathways, expand affordability and economic opportunity, and continue to address student housing and basic needs as my priorities. And I look forward to working in partnership with all of you and happy to answer your questions. And if I don't have an answer tonight, per usual, I'll be sure to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Nobles. And thank you for what you do in Olympia on behalf of the citizens for University Place. Before you have a chance to leave, though, I'm going to open this to council to see if anyone here on the dais has any questions. Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey.
Thank you for your time coming and giving a brief, and it will be on our TV streaming, so hopefully everyone that is interested will get an update. So thank you for everything you do for public service and also the funding, and keeping UP in the forefront of your mind makes my heart grow fonder. I have some of the funding that you have sponsored on behalf of University Place has made a huge difference. I know I saw some $1 million price tags up there that was regionally, but they will benefit University Place as well. But even a little bit of funding can help create the gaps that we need in order to do bigger projects. So I do appreciate that. And also your willingness and openness to hear from our city council members when there is a concern, and also to our Director of Finance, Eric Faison, and our legislative support for University Place.
You're welcome.
I'm glad we were able to work together as a team. I really am thankful for that. The topic that wasn't mentioned in your report was homelessness. There's housing affordability, which sort of dovetails and ties into that, and the foster children too that are aging out, facing homelessness as well. I would just like to get a little more update and insight on that, and also for the disabled veterans that are struggling out there as well. That when you're homeless, sometimes there's things that happen to you that create more and more barriers. And so I look forward to having a chat with you and talk to you about some of those things.
Yes.
And maybe we can partner together and make their lives a little better in the future.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
I look forward to partnering, look forward to grabbing coffee, and I also will send more information about the work that we've done for disabled vets and community members experiencing homelessness.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. If you have the information, if not, you can maybe give it to us later. But on the timber sales, can you just give us a shot at the timber sales and how it's being utilized, and is it growing? Is it underutilized? Are we having issues with the timber sales, things like that? Because that's a big program from DNR in regards to schools. So if you can just brief us a little bit on that.
Timber sales is not my area of expertise.
Okay.
This is where I need my seatmates here, because I know that this is something that they talk about a whole lot in the House, but I'll make sure I follow up to give you an update on timber sales and impacts on schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator Nobles, for being here this evening. And it's been said by Mayor Pro Tem, but thank you for being so accessible to our team and to our staff and our council. And Mayor Pro Tem alluded to it slightly, but it was just one story during AWC Action Days where you made time to meet with us. And thank you to your incredible team. You have a great team that keeps you going, I know, and serves as the great front door. So I know it takes a village, but you know, we were down there in Olympia and we got a call from our staff, and there was a bill and there was some potential legislation that we felt wasn't the best fit for our businesses, specifically in University Place. And you took the time to give our feedback. And you said exactly as you said this evening, I can't promise, but I do want to hear what would make this better. So if you could propose an amendment, I will push that forward. And our team got that together, got that to you, and you were right on it. So I just want to say thank you for being actionable on that. And I know that you can say a lot of things, but we got to see that in real time. And so I really appreciate that. You're great at being accessible. One question too, and you can get back to us about this as well, but for those watching, we hear a lot about the headlines of the millionaire's tax and what this is going to do, but we also hear the converse of that is the largest small business tax relief is coming as a part of that. And I think a lot of our small business owners, you know, that's my passion. And a lot of them are asking, what does that mean? I know exactly steps 1, 2, and 3. And maybe there could be an opportunity to share with University Place businesses, but also in the 28th, what that means for them, so we could really spell that. Because I know that's a huge benefit, and everyone is, especially in our small business community, would love to know how that directly impacts them and the community. So maybe there's a way that we could get that messaging out. I would love to know more about it as well. So
Yeah, I have been speaking to small businesses too, to let them know that, well, I also let staff in the legislature know that we need to get through all of the steps that are in place so that we can get to that tax relief. But the moment that happens, absolutely, I'll be on top of communicating all over my social media. I'm sure our staff will provide us with some good messaging. And then I'm happy to show up with you to businesses, because I know it is your passion, to have those conversations and to walk through what this will look like, what businesses can expect as soon as we can get through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's huge and it's a great,
Yeah.
But I would love to know more on it, and so they would too. But
yeah, and it's an important part too, because I did hear from a lot of businesses who were fearful of this will impact, I barely make money, and this will impact, my business makes it look like I'm wealthier than I am. And the legislature has been very clear, and I've been very clear too, on the focus is on high earner income, and this is not an attack on businesses, that the purpose of the millionaire's tax is to provide significant relief for businesses. And while we're on this topic, because I also didn't speak about this, but there are many of us in the legislature who recognize how regressive the B&O tax is for businesses. And there are lots of opinions in the legislature, so I don't get to single-handedly make decisions, and neither does a small group of us who feel like we need to, completely reform that tax. But it is something that I continue to talk about. I have colleagues who are continuing to talk about how our current B&O tax system is just causing more harm than good to businesses, and there needs to be something that is done about it. So for business owners who are listening, please know that is a top priority. And also, if everything goes well with the millionaire's tax, I'll be one of the first to communicate what businesses can expect as far as relief and support.
Thank you. And thank you for being accessible to them. I hope they are listening, because my experience has been that you are accessible. And I know for business owners that have those concerns, I want to make sure they have a direct pipeline, which they have been. Yes. They have great representation in the 28th. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, if I could add, one thing I've been saying to businesses is, in the interim, while we're waiting for things to progress and see what the outcome will be, I'm happy to still answer questions. I have heard a lot of fears and concerns from businesses, and I welcome any business in my district to reach out and say, is this true? Will this happen? And we'll get right on it. We'll get truth and facts out to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, Senator Nobles, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us tonight to update council as well as our citizens here in our community. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we're moved now to item number 6, which is our public comment. We are now in that portion of public comment on the agenda. This is an opportunity for members of the public to provide their comments to the City Council and about any items that are not appearing on the agenda or on the consent agenda. So with that, the instructions on how to participate if you're joining us online are up on the screen. And Madam Clerk, is there anyone online who wishes to provide public comment?
I don't see anyone online, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. We will move then to public comment for those that are here in the chamber. We've had one citizen who has signed up, Mr. Clarence Walters. If you would come forward, sir, state your name and address for the record. And the same thing is you got to talk right into the mic like you're going to eat it for us to hear you up here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will get as close as I can. My name is Clarence Walters. We live at 4432 Memory Lane West in University Place. That little piece of Memory Lane is the last north-south piece of that road before you get to the Salish Sea. I brought along a little detritus, a show and tell, to let you know what I'm talking about. So this is the physical manifestation. I don't know if I can approach you to give it to you or how you want to do that. On the 4th of July, which is a tremendous celebration day, we normally sit on a deck and watch what's going on at Anderson Island, at the ferry dock, and across the way on Fox Island. They always have a lot of fireworks. We went to bed, and shortly after we were in bed, we noticed an overhead display close to our house. And the next morning when we got up, this is what we found on our lawn, on our deck, and on our roof. And this is nuts. I went to the police department in UP and to the fire department, and the question I was asking was, is this detritus from illegal or legal fireworks? And they could not or would not answer that question. So in my mind, these are completely illegal. They should not be raining down this kind of stuff on my house. And even if they got to the Salish Sea, I don't want to see this kind of plastic in the Salish Sea. So one of the things that occurred to me is that people that are firing these are not teenagers with Roman candles. This is some serious fireworks that someone bought off-site, not in UP. So they probably spent well over $1,000 on their fireworks. So a $1,000 fine is not going to affect them at all. So one of the things that I urge you to consider is changing that fine to $10,000. If you change it to $10,000 and enforce it on one person, the word will get around. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. With regards to the show and tell, I suppose you could pass it over to the staff table over there with us. Thank you very much. Okay, I do not see anyone else on the agenda or schedule here for public comment. So with that said, we will close public comment. We'll move to item 7. And with that, I will call for a motion to approve the consent agenda. And then are there any objections to approve the consent agenda as you see it before you? Okay, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed, 7A through 7D.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Hearing none to the motion passes unanimously. We'll now move to item number 8. And this is for council considerations. And there's a couple of rules we have to follow tonight under This item, this is the West Pierce Fire and Rescue Rezone application. To the council, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and the closed record hearing for the West Pierce Fire and Rescue Rezone application is now open. If there is anyone present who participated in the open record hearing on this matter before the hearing examiner and desires to be heard, they should have signed in at the sign-in at the back of the room at the table when you came in. And if you have not done so, if you would please do so now. The public hearing will proceed in an orderly fashion, and I would like to ask for your cooperation in the following procedures. This is a closed record hearing. There has been an open record hearing before the hearing examiner. And under state law, there is only one public hearing allowed in this proceeding. This closed record hearing means the council bases its decision on the record developed at the open record public hearing before the hearings examiner, and therefore no new testimony is allowed except in a very limited circumstances. If a party has submitted a motion to supplement the record, the council will deliberate and vote on that motion before hearing arguments from the parties. Comments from the speakers must be in the nature of argument only, based on and limited to facts in the written and oral record developed before the hearings examiner. Arguments must specify the specific finding or conclusion disputed, if any, and the relief requested from the City Council. If anyone present presents comments that are not based on fact in the record, then anyone may make an objection to such comments. If the objection is made, the person speaking will stop until the issue of the objection is resolved. All comments shall be made from the speaker's table and microphone, and any individual making comments shall first give his or her name and address. Please speak slowly and clearly for the record. This is required because an official record transcript of the hearing is being made, and if there is an appeal, the court must make its decision on the basis of what was said here on the record. If anyone requires special accommodations in order to speak, please let me know, and we will make those arrangements as soon as possible for you. In fairness to all in attendance, each person will be given the opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 3 minutes. The applicant shall be given time to make their initial presentation. I'm requesting council members to hold their questions of the public until everyone is done. There shall also be no demonstrations such as clapping or cheering during or at the conclusion of anyone's presentation. This hearing, as I said earlier, is a quasi-judicial in nature, and therefore the appearance of fairness and conflict of interest rules apply. The quasi-judicial actions are defined as actions of the council which determine legal rights, duties, or privileges of specific parties and hearings. The public hearing must be fair in 3 respects: form, substance, and appearance. Now, do any council members, including myself, and this includes others, have any interest in this property or stand to gain or lose any financial benefit as a result of the outcome of this hearing, or have any disclosures to make? Okay, seeing that there's none, is there anyone in the audience who objects to my participation or any other council members' participation in these hearings? Okay, seeing that there's none. The purpose of this hearing is for the council to take action relating to the West Pierce Fire and Rescue Rezone application. The order of speakers are going to be as follows. First, we'll have the staff presentation, then the presentation from the applicant, then presentation from the public. To the extent possible, we will alternate between proponents and opponents of the application, if there are any, and then response from the applicant, then response from the staff, and then questions from the council members. Before the hearing from the applicant and the public, I'm going to introduce Kenneth George, our planning manager, who will make the staff presentation. Now, I will call upon the applicant to speak after Kenneth has done his presentation, and we will go forward from there. So, Kenneth, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Following that, I'll just go through my presentation, which will be a little bit additional procedural, but I'll go through and talk about the project itself, a bulk of discussing what the project, the need for the project, and searching for the specific site. Could leave that up to the applicant themselves, who is here this evening to speak on their behalf. Before you this evening is action on a quasi-judicial rezone application submitted by West Pierce Fire and Rescue, located at 5904 67th Avenue West. The property, about 4.73 acres, is currently zoned R1, or residential 1, or R1 for short, which does not allow for public safety facilities or public facilities such as a fire station. West Pierce Fire and Rescue is proposing a new fire station at this location and requesting to apply the city's public facilities overlay to the zone, or to the subject property. Now, the public facilities overlay zone is a specific zone overlay added to existing, what we refer to as underlying zone. So the underlying zone, R1 zone, remains in place and the overlay is added on top of it. This is the case for other similar properties in the city, such as all of the schools. All the schools are located in R1 zones with a public facilities overlay, and the city's public works shop, located off of Grandview Drive, is an R1 zone as the underlying zone, but it is an allowed use under the public facilities overlay. The rezone itself doesn't authorize construction of a fire station. The project will still require additional project-specific reviews, including a conditional use permit, which is seen before the city's hearing examiner, building permits, tree removal permits, engineering permits, and other applicable city permits. The plans for this application are a little conceptual at this point for the rezone stage, because they still require undergoing the site-specific city permits, but they're necessary to demonstrate that the proposed fire station can still be built on the site and can meet all the applicable zoning regulations. Without the rezone, to add the public facilities overlay to the site, the proposed fire station is not a permitted use on the property. Would like to note that the application does not include any amendments to the city's zoning codes or regulations, such as setbacks, heights, or other such applicable regulations that would be applied to the project. The proposed fire station is proposing to meet all existing applicable regulations. And furthermore, the application does not include an amendment to the city's land use map under the comprehensive plan. Under the comprehensive plan, this property and all the R1 zones are in the low density land use designation, which under our current comprehensive plan includes a public facilities overlay. So there's no amendment to the comprehensive plan or any of the development regulations proposed for this project. And as such, it's not seen before the Planning Commission, which would normally, for text amendments, zoning text amendments, or other comp plan amendments, those are seen before the Planning Commission. Since this is a rezone of the property only, pursuant to city code, this is seen before the city's hearing examiner. The city hearing examiner conducted an open public meeting on May 28th, and then issued a subsequent to that meeting and hearing from staff, the applicant, and public testimony, issued a findings of facts and recommendation on June 3rd. I'll conclude by saying that the city's hearing examiner did recommend to the City Council approval of the proposed application to rezone the subject property, subject to about 5 conditions listed in the hearing examiner's recommendation. I believe this concludes what staff is prepared to present to the commission, the City Council tonight, and that concludes my staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. George. I will now call upon the applicant to speak on behalf of the Fire District, Fire Chief Ryan McGrady, and your consultant Colleen from Apex Engineering.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes.
We can, thank
okay,
you.
Hi. Hi, I am Colleen Nerona, and I am with Apex Engineering, and we are working with West Pierce Fire and Rescue on their Station 32 project here. So thank you for having us and listening to us, and I'm sure some of this is going to be a repeat of what Kenneth has already said. And here with me is Chief McGrady, and we are going to kind of tag team this a little bit. I'm going to give some of the kind of code related, and the Chief McGrady will give you more kind of the background on the need for the fire station. So you can go ahead and, sorry, I can do it, I guess. All right, thanks. Okay. I wasn't sure where it was. So we're requesting the approval of a quasi-judicial rezone to apply a public facility overlay to an undeveloped 4.73 parcel located at 5904 67th Avenue West. The purpose of the overlay is to allow construction of Fire Station 32, a new public facility. We are highlighting the public benefits of the new station, and I'm going to walk through how the proposal meets the required rezone criteria under the University Place Municipal Code. You can change. So here's an aerial of the site. As you can see, the site is currently undeveloped. It is adjacent to single-family homes on the east, west, and north. To the south are multifamily apartments. Fred Meyer's is about a quarter mile to the south. Go ahead. So I know, I'm sorry, this is kind of small for some of you guys to see, but West Pierce Fire and Rescue proposes to site a new fire station. The station will operate 24 hours a day and be staffed with 8 firefighters and up to 12 daytime admin employees. The site is located, as I said, along 67th Avenue West with existing infrastructure and access already in place. The facility includes an approximately 20,000 square foot of a building footprint. Approximately 10,000 square feet will be a single-story 4 or 5 drive-through apparatus bay for the fire engines and specialty vehicles with dedicated storage and a decontamination area for gear and equipment. The rest will be 2 stories and include administrative offices, day crew, quarters, kitchen, day room, dining room, things like that are associated with the fire department. Other site improvements will include a fueling station, about a 1,000-gallon diesel tank, and a 500-gallon gasoline tank for the emergency vehicles. And during the permitting process, West Pierce Fire and Rescue will work with University Place and will comply with all of University Place codes and standards. This will include, stormwater management, building, site development, critical areas, fire code with the fire department, and landscape buffering, and everything else that's associated with that. We are still pretty early in the process. You can go ahead. Okay, so the site, as Kenneth has already said, is currently zoned Residential 1 with a comprehensive plan designation of low-density residential. Fire stations are classified as public safety kind of government services. Government services are not permitted in R1. A public facility overlay explicitly allows public safety uses with a conditional use permit. This requested rezone would apply the public safety overlay through a quasi-judicial rezone to the site and allow future consideration of a fire station as a public safety use, aligning the zoning with the essential public service. The underlying R1 zoning remains unchanged. The overlay simply allows a government service use, such as a fire station. This is a targeted and limited rezone, not a broad designation change. So what the rezone does not do, it does not approve construction, it does not approve the site plan, it does not approve grading or anything like that. All future development remains subject to all other permitting, and including the conditional use permit, critical area review, civil, building, and fire permits. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Chief McCready.
Good evening, Council. Just a brief history. Can you guys hear me okay? Just a brief history. When West Pierce was formed in 2011 with the merger of, at the time, University Place Fire Department and Lakewood Fire Department, there were no fire stations at the border between the two. And on this diagram, that's where roughly the purple area to the north meets that yellow and green section to the south, being the border. The circles with the red dots in them represent our current fire stations across all of West Pierce Fire District. And you can see on that map there is a gap there. The University Place Fire Department historically has had 2 fire stations. A number of years ago, one of those stations was closed down and consolidated into one because it didn't make operational sense. They were actually too close together. And this provides us an opportunity to construct a new station in that response area gap to the south. So kind of defining the need a little bit, call volume has steadily increased since the merger of the 2 fire districts back in 2011. Back then we ran 11,000 to 12,000 calls a year collectively, and currently we're up to 18,000 calls a year. So substantial increase as a result. The population growth over the next 20 years is estimated to be roughly 40% in the city of University Place and 35% within the city of Lakewood. As you guys could see from the slide previous to that, the significant gap between those stations with increased call volumes actually results in a delayed or prolonged response time in certain areas within our fire district. Additionally, our current stations are at their capacity, just meaning that the apparatus and the vehicles that are currently housed at those stations, we're at maximum capacity because we do not have any more apparatus bay space to store vehicles indoors. So as a result, at our fleet maintenance facility, a lot of our vehicles are actually stored outdoors in the elements when they're not in use or operation. This diagram looks a little bit busy, so I'll explain it somewhat here. What this represents are roughly 4-minute response times from our current station, which is in the red section. That white dot in the center represents the station actually just across the street from here. And everything in red represents an estimated 4-minute response time from that location. Going to the south into the blue section, that white circle represents the proposed fire station location on the property that we're discussing, and the blue represents a 4-minute response time from that location. As you can see, results in significant response capability improvements to the south end of the city of University Place. This slide shows the what we call hotspots. This is a little bit of what we call a heat map. So it still contains the 4-minute response zones from the previous slide, But the sections in overlaid in yellow, green, and subsequently red show the call volume in those locations in each of those areas. So the sections in red that you see, one of which is roughly where we are today, represent a high area of call volume. The red squares down below to the south represent a high area of call volume, which, as you can see, is located a lot closer to that southernmost station in the district. And then those other pockets of yellow represent obviously a lower level of call volume. This does not represent call volume, obviously, through the entire city, just those pockets where call volume is highest. So as I noted, Station 32, as we're calling it, would be intended to improve emergency response times, as those maps have already indicated. It allows for better service for high call volume areas in the southern portion of University Place, and helps to support the population growth and then the increasing impacts to call volume in the city. Some of the considerations that were made, why this particular location. As we saw from some of the response area maps previously, the service area coverage, it's an optimal location. As we saw from the early slide, there is a response gap to the southern end of University Place, and this station fills that need, which would improve response times. As noted, we've reviewed our historic call volume, and from that previous heat map, you can see where we have high density call volume areas, which this station location would also help to improve. In addition to that, as we have high volume areas, by putting another station there and distributing our resources evenly, it helps to improve what we call unit reliability, or what that is the ability for another station to backfill when another unit is out. Currently, if the response vehicles located at Station 31 are not in service or attending another call, and another call emergency drops in University Place, the closest station is actually Station 21, which is located at the 5000 block of Stilcomb Boulevard, which results in a fairly prolonged response time to the city. Additionally, the property size allows for, as stated on the slide, a large enough fire station to meet the needs for our continued growth, as well as our storage for apparatus. As was noted, the current plan is to staff this with roughly 8 personnel, response-capable personnel, and then providing additional office space for some of our day positions or some of the other divisions that work typically a Monday through Friday schedule. As noted, the pathway we've been on since late in 2025 is that we've executed a purchase and sale agreement late last year for the property, and then we've been continuously going through the process, as was noted earlier in our presentation.
Thank you. So I'm going to go now through the rezone criteria framework and just show how this project does meet the city's criteria. So the criteria basically are: is there some kind of change condition, is in the public interest, the comprehensive plan consistency, public health, safety, and welfare, compliance with university code, and how we are minimizing impacts to neighbors. So the first one is change conditions, public interest. So the surrounding area has experienced significant growth and development. The growth of single-family homes, multifamily, and retail and commercial. Emergency service demand is increased with approximately 5,500 calls per year associated with this service area. Demographics have changed. Along with the population growth, aging demographics are increasing the need for emergency response. The analysis, as Chief has already explained, for the response time has identified service gaps in that southern portion of the city. And based on these conditions, the current zoning no longer reflects the public need for emergency infrastructure. The next one. So public health, safety, and welfare. So the proposed station will reduce emergency response times in underserved areas. Faster response directly improves life safety outcomes and property protection. The station will support fire suppression, emergency medical services, and disaster response coordination. This project is a core public safety function, not discretionary development. Overall, the rezone has a positive and substantial impact on public health, safety, and welfare. The next one. So then consistency with with University Place's comprehensive plan. So as identified in the staff report, the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan's capital facilities and public safety policies. The proposal is consistent with goal CF1, which requires the city to provide adequate public facilities to serve existing and future development. It also supports goal CF3 by implementing the capital facilities element through a project that addresses identified service needs. The proposal aligns with goal CF4, as the facility is located to maximize public benefit while minimizing impact through site design and buffering. And it also directly implements policy CF69, which calls for maintaining fire and emergency response service levels as the city grows. Okay, so site design and compatibility. So the surrounding area consists primarily, as we said, of single-family residential uses with multifamily development to the south. A fire station is more intensive than a typical single-family residential use due to its operational characteristics such as vehicle movement and staffing. However, public safety facilities are intentionally located within or near residential service areas because response times depends on proximity to the population served. And as Kenneth mentioned, that's what the public overlay is for, is a lot of them are put into residential areas. So that's what this is, that zoning is used for. So the city code addresses this through the public facility overlay, which allows civic uses while maintaining the underlying zone structure. You missed one. Oh, okay, maybe I missed one, but building placement, noise control, and access. So the site, to minimize basically our impacts to our neighbors, the site design was intentionally developed to minimize impacts to adjacent residential properties through building placement, site layout, buffering, and operational considerations. The building, grading, and retaining walls provide both vertical and horizontal separation from adjacent residential areas. Higher activity areas are oriented internally toward the center of the site rather than toward neighboring homes. Vehicle circulation is contained within the site, limiting activity and noise on the property edges. I think we're on the one before. The project also incorporates noise mitigation measures. Emergency vehicle sirens are generally not activated until apparatus reach public roadways and are needed for traffic control and public safety. Often, if it's safe, sirens will not be used. Building location, topography, retaining walls, and perimeter buffing also help reduce the transmission of operational noise to nearby residences. The site includes landscape buffering and screening along the residential property lines and providing an initial visual and acoustic separation between the fire station and neighboring homes. Access is consolidated in a single driveway along 67th Avenue West. Traffic access and operations will be evaluated as part of the future permitting process. A traffic engineer will evaluate access operations, roadway impacts, and whether traffic control improvements, including a signal, are warranted or required at the site access, and that will be part of the conditional use permitting. That would be part of the next step. Lighting will be designed to be directed downward and toward the interior of the site, which is standard practice for minimizing spillover. Building placement and setbacks also help reduce light visibility at the property line. In combination with the landscaping, this provides additional layer of screening of the residences. The landscape, the project retains existing vegetation along the site perimeter, and I don't know how well you can see that, but I know somebody was mentioning, from the road, we are retaining, there's slopes there are trees, so there's quite a big buffer in the front and in the back, and also to the south, to the north, a L1 landscape buffer is required adjacent to the single-family residences to the north, and the intent is to fully shield the homes from the fire station. A minimum 20-foot perimeter buffer is proposed along the northern property line. It will include a layered screening approach, including walls of up to 20 feet due to the slopes, structural screening fences, and dense vegetation. This landscaping is consistent with code requirements at the rezone level. And as noted in the staff report, the final landscaping design, including compliance with that level 1 buffering requirements or an improved modification, will be addressed at the conditional use permit and detailed site plan stage. The site does include steep slope areas along the edges that will remain undisturbed. Required setbacks are maintained, which requires physical separations from the neighboring properties, and the natural features function as another built-in buffering element, both visually and acoustically. So when you look at these elements together, building orientation, site layout, landscaping, and natural features, the design provides layered mitigation that reduces noise, light, and visual impacts while supporting the operational needs of the facility. Now we can change. So a SEPA has been completed and a mitigated determination of non-significance has been issued. This confirms that there's no probable significant adverse environmental impacts. There's no wetlands or streams or critical habitats have been documented on site. A geotechnical evaluation confirms the site is feasible for development with no active landslide hazards identified. The required mitigation measures include soil sampling due to the Osarko plume and potential remediation as needed. West Pierce Fire and Rescue has engaged an environmental review to evaluate the soils and make recommendations on potential mitigation. That, again, will be addressed further once we have more details during the conditional use permit process. Good. So, in summary, this proposal meets the required criteria for a quasi-judicial rezone. It demonstrated that there are changed conditions and that the project's in the public interest. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. This project will be permitted through University Place and other jurisdictions as required and will comply with the code and standards. West Pierce Fire and Rescue is determined to be a good neighbor, and the design of this site to mitigate and minimize impacts to its neighbors. The project provides a critical public safety benefit to the community and addresses legitimate public safety needs. Impacts will be evaluated and will be appropriately mitigated. The request is limited, procedural, and policy-based. The city maintains oversight throughout multiple future permitting, and public concerns will be acknowledged and addressed through future reviews. Based on all of this, we respectfully request that the City Council approve the public facility overlay rezone for this site and this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Also. So with this, we are now in public testimony and comment portion of this meeting. And to Madam Clerk, are there any written materials that have been submitted? Or does anyone wish to submit written materials without speaking?
Mayor, didn't receive any written testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Or anyone has signed up for public comment.
Thank you. I will now call on members of the public who participated in the open records hearing on this matter before the hearing examiner and have signed up. If you participated in the open record public hearing and have not signed up and wish to speak, please sign up now at the table at the back of the room here, and you'll be given the opportunity after all who have signed up to speak. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, a quick question, procedural. I have 6 names up here of individuals who spoke at the public hearing. This is not the place, or is this the place?
There's no one who signed up, Mayor.
Okay, so none of these folks are here? Okay, then we will forego that. So now I'll call on members of the, never mind, after that, I will now call upon the applicant to speak if there's any rebuttals. I haven't heard of any rebuttals, so you're off the hook there. Does the staff, wish to respond to any issues that have been raised in the presentation so far?
None so.
Okay, we'll move past that. So to my colleagues here on the dais, this is your moment. At this time, any council members may ask any questions of any speaker or staff. Is there any council members who wish to speak? Council Member Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, a couple. One is a request from you, Mayor, and that is the names on that list. I would like to hear them out loud who testified at the hearing. I'd like to hear their names. Sure. And then one is for the fire department staff. So how would you like me to, you just want to do that one first?
Sure, I can go ahead and read this into the record, and then we can go to your second question. But those that appeared at the hearing were a Linda Vanderwerker, a David Loban, Patricia Holt, Carrie Barber, Julie Garatone, and Alvin Nurse.
Thank you. As for the fire departments, the large slope to the south is pretty steep, as you know. I saw that there's quite a bit of buffer between the building and where that the edge starts. So has that been, I'm sure it has, but can you just maybe expand a little bit about what was tested, who tested it, and the security of that? Because as you disturb such a big site like that and where you're planning to do so, I know about things about slope and rain, and once you disturb, I don't know what was underneath there. I know you're going to have to dig some things out.
No, so thank you for the question, and that's a great question because, yes, slopes are always, you want to be very careful. So, yes, we have had Geo Resources, geotechnical engineer works on site. They did do a soil analysis of the site, and the slopes to that south, you're right, are pretty steep. Mm-hmm. So their recommendation based on the slopes and the information we have so far, I believe it's 20 feet. I'd have to go look at my notes, but I think there was a 20 feet from top of slope that we need to be set back. Just so you know, as we move forward in the process, we will be having georecesses go back out again because there's still more, as for the civil engineering for site development, more that we need. But I can tell you just some basic things that will be done is that we will be leaving that undisturbed. That is one of the reasons why you have the setback. You want to make sure that the natural landscaping, everything stays undisturbed. There will be nothing disturbed there. And they will when they go back out, they will make recommendations. Do we need to add anything else to make sure you're stabilizing that slope? But from the report we have is that slope is stable. That as long as we stay back and do our proper, when we go to do construction, put our protections in, do our best management practices, that we will be able to keep everything safe there. So, and erosion and control, that is obviously a big part of that.
So all water will be going the other direction, north, or is it going to go west? East. It would actually go probably east, correct?
Technically, they want it to go the same way that it's been going all the time. You're supposed to keep the water in the same basin, but we will probably collect it because we'll have to treat it, and then depending on our infiltration rates, it will either have an infiltration trench where it will be infiltrated on site. If the soils cannot, because my recollection, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the water table is fairly low there, but if we cannot infiltrate on site, then it will be treated and sent to public facilities. But we aren't quite far enough there to know exactly how we're going to treat that. But yes, it will not be sent down the slope directly like that, no.
And my last question would be sewer to the site.
Sewer is in 67th, and yes, we will be working, and yet we've already looked. Obviously, it is high. It will be able to gravity sewer. We've already, looked at those calculations, and then we will work with Pierce County on permitting for that, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cunningham.
Yep. Hi. Thanks. Thanks for the presentation. Again, it was great to be at that initial public meeting that we had, so we got a lot of these questions already answered. But I think just wanted to, I remember someone brought this up at that meeting, and I don't think that I heard it, and I just wanted to sort of reiterate, and maybe everybody else can hear. So 67th is a busy road. It's a main drag. People drive really quickly down there. So in the instance of an emergency, what is going to be the traffic control mechanisms that we're going to put in place? Because people are kind of flying down 67th. You guys are going to be coming out of that. So there's going to need to be some type of stop or control before you get to the bottom of the intersection where the actual stoplights are. So can you touch on that a little bit?
And I did mention it just briefly, but maybe I did not.
Oh, you're fine. Thanks.
But yes, as part of the conditional use permit, we have already engaged a traffic engineer, and they will be looking at it for basically those type of traffic impacts, whether we need a signal. As a civil engineering, we will also be looking at site distance to make sure that there is site distance to get in. We've looked at it briefly, and it does appear from our initial review that site distance is not an issue coming down to be able to see. But the traffic engineer, we worked with Heath and Associates. They will do the traffic signal and their recommendations, because what was brought up in the hearing examiner, and I don't know if you saw, there is a street across, there's a road across the street, and they don't meet up exactly. They're kind of off a little bit. So all of those things will be addressed during that traffic. He will evaluate that, yes. Perfect. And make recommendations.
Perfect. And then my other question is, because most of the response times are the longer ones south, do you anticipate that that station, in particular Station 32, will only really be, I mean, will they be going up at all? Or do you anticipate that we're just going to keep those call times that are going to be down on the south end, or, you know, we still have here? So, I mean, I'm just thinking, are they going to be turning left to go back up 67th, or are they going to predominantly just be going down? So just to kind of think through that.
That's a good question. It all depends on where the call volume is, and I imagine that they will be going both directions. Just, you know, it's hard to say without having an actual layout of where our predominant call volume is, but I think it's appropriate to assume that emergency vehicles will respond both north on 67th as well as south.
Perfect. Awesome. And then my very last question, again with the calls. So then does that mean that we will be an option now for those that are going to be, you know, how Lakewood has to come and serve us now? Do you anticipate that we will be having to go back out that direction, or what's going to be happening? I know in the public meeting you talked about the other stations are having other upgrades as well. So what does that look like for what we'll be offering because that station exists now?
So all of the stations in Lakewood are also still part of West Pierce, but there are when we talk about first due reliability, it is the ability of a station to manage all of the emergencies in its own geographical area. So by adding this station here, that will actually improve not just the station, the other station here in University Place ability to remain in its first due, but it will also improve our other stations' ability to do the same in Lakewood. So it is a direct benefit to the city of University Place, but as a secondary benefit, it is also benefiting the stations on the northern side of Lakewood as well.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the wonderful presentation and the thoughtful approach that you had with the sensitivity to the neighbors, the surrounding neighbors, with the light, the noise, the traffic implications, because it will make an impact. So I like that you considered that piece to it, because they are R1 and they have certain expectations of their lifestyle in their homes when they initially purchased it. So this will be, a little change for them at the least. When I first saw this, I was like going, yikes, that's a heck of a lot of trees that are on this little 4-acre parcel there. And there's we're going through a climate action plan that we want to retain our tree canopy, and we want to grow trees within the city of University Place. And I noted in your report that you had considered the health of the trees, the invasive species of it. We have a total of 942 trees on the property, and of those, there are 733 trees. I would like to publicly note that you are over and above the trees that you're expected to retain, and maybe partially that for the slope, but as you know, as someone who loves trees, I like that you took the initiative and you are now going to retain 536 trees. Some of the ones that will be taken out are unhealthy or non-native species as well. So that remains, you know, a couple hundred or so trees that will have to be taken off the property, which, you know, you have to make room for the building, and I understand that. But with the climate action plan, you know, we don't have it quite in place. But if maybe for your, this is a suggestion, by the way, for your grand opening, because, you know, when people drive by that site and they're going to see, because a couple hundred trees or more, you know, are going to be, we'll probably get some emails in regards to the trees being cut down. And so I like that I have the information to relay to my citizens. But I thought it might be a nice gesture if on your grand opening or ribbon cutting of your fire station, that you could have tree giveaways, you know, appropriate trees that we would like to encourage in our residential properties to plant. And I thought that would be a nice head nod to the trees that would have to be sacrificed for public safety, which public safety is, you know, number one. But if we could kind of mitigate that a little bit, I thought that might be a good gesture and head nod to our environment, to the trees, and all the services that the trees do to keep our community healthy, and as well as the wildlife and the birds too. So thank you for your detailed report, and I appreciate your attentiveness to the underserved area of University Place and everything that your firemen and servicemen and all the administrative components that make that, because it's quite complicated to serve fire as well as the community care aspect of it, to make sure that it's not only fire and emergency services that you do, but you do other things as well that maybe people are not quite aware of. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so since we're in a quasi-judicial hearing at this time, I did have other questions. I'm going to forego those ones and stick to the questions that I have for the hearing. With regards to the exit point of your proposal, I was pleased to hear that you at least have some services engaged to look at sight distance. I know coming down the hill, you have very limited sight. Coming out, I actually went and stood there and looked at that corner. It's almost like a blind corner coming out of there, so I think it's going to be important that we sign that with that one. So I'm good with that. I am concerned about the offset of the street as well as the island that's out there on the street. And I don't know if this is a question for you or one that we'll save for our staff, but you know, does that island have to be removed, or how do you see that as the engines exit onto 67th?
Quite truthfully, we have to look at it more. I mean, that is something that when we get into the design, we actually will do auto turns. We'll kind of look at all of that and work hand in hand with the traffic engineer on that part of it. It did not jump out at me, but we were not looking completely at that part of it. So, you know, that's something we're going to have to consider carefully, because obviously we've been hearing a lot of comments, even from the hearing examiner meeting where that was brought up. So it is something that the fire department knows, and we've already talked to the traffic engineer, so that will be addressed.
Okay, thank you. You know, the other, I want to dovetail on Councilmember Figueroa's concerns. That parcel you're looking at is actually part of the quarry that used to exist there, which is now occupied by all those other structures downhill from that one piece you're looking at. I am concerned about the water runoff. And why I'm concerned, because in the city, we've had issues in the past where the water runoff from a higher elevation to a lower elevation really does have an impact of unanticipated consequences. So when I think about the apartment complex to the south of that, and below that is a neighborhood, and below that is Fred Meyer, there's still a lot of water runoff coming off the top of that hill. So I heard what you've said, but I'm still not thoroughly satisfied that you've taken into account the amount of water that runs off that hill and how you're going to mitigate it when you expose it even further.
So just so you know, we do have to follow all DOE and University Place stormwater manual design guidelines. They are very strict, and anytime you add any kind of impervious area is going to include your building, your parking lot, all of that, okay? Anytime you clear, we have to have our best management practice. We have to catch the water. We are not allowed to let that water escape and just run down the hill. So that would not, I can tell you right now, I've had a lot of projects in front of your development, and they will not let that go by. So yes, that I know it's an issue. But with the site, with our previous, with the our geotechnical engineer, the analysis he's done, he does still, because this is still all preliminary, I need more information right now to be able to find out infiltration rates, to be able to model the water that's coming up. So there's a lot more information we still need to get into that design. But having looked at it, because we have done conceptual engineering on this, we are able to capture and we will be able to handle that water on site so that it does not impact the properties to the south. Part of that will be one of the reasons why we want to leave the trees, is because that is a protection. As soon as you start removing that vegetation, you will expose erosion and things like that too. So that is another important reason why those trees, especially downslope, need to stay. And then we will address all of that partially during the conceptual. We'll get more information because we will send the geotech back out, but definitely during our civil engineering design.
Okay, thank you for that. And to Mr. George, how is the staff looking at that particular issue?
Yeah, this is one where we go back to that fact that this application proposal for the fire station still requires a conditional use permit. That is an added land use process on top of just the building permits. And so there is additional level of application review for this particular proposal that will go before the hearing examiner to analyze the impacts and the project itself and potentially apply additional conditions as deemed necessary during the review. So that's how staff would kind of look at this, and then those would, as the applicant noted, those would stem over into the project-specific permits, like the building permit and the site development permit, where they need to meet full compliance. But that conditional use permit adds an extra layer of project review that we can take.
So it sounds like you're mitigating that already. My last question has to do with the fuel storage on site. You're proposing a 1,000-gallon diesel, 500-gallon regular gasoline storage on site, and it's dead center of a neighborhood. Talk about the safety measures that are in place to ensure that we don't end up with a catastrophic event at any. I mean, when you think about mitigating things, you got to mitigate for the what ifs, right? Mm-hmm. So, things I think about is explosions, leakage, contamination, and all that good stuff. How have you mitigated that in your planning?
So I can talk at least about the mitigation with contamination and things like that. I am sure, I know you, the fire department, may be able to talk about the, because it's above ground, the containers they're going to use. So he'll be able to talk. So it's above ground, not below ground. Okay, they're above ground containers. And anytime you have that, we put in oil water separate. So even in that, it will be on a base. We'll have your foundation where they sit, and it will catch all the runoff. You will have an oil water separate. So basically, it has its own little containment that captures. And that's best practice. Anytime you have these oil, your gasoline, diesel, we will catch that. So you will filter it so it will not contaminate the ground around it. And I know the fire station also has their safety protocol going with the, and I don't know if you want to talk on that a little bit, but just from a design standpoint to prevent contamination, there are best practices and the way we grade it and we capture any water runoff from there is captured separately than with the other storms so that you can filter it. So,
hey, with it being above ground, that even concerns me more in a neighborhood. So, Chief, could you talk to the safety? We have heard about the contamination piece, but I haven't heard about all it takes is a spark to get something going when you're talking about flammables above ground.
We have, all of our stations currently have fuel tank storage, above ground fuel tank storage at them. We do have, all of our stations also have resources on site to be able to mitigate small spills. If for some reason, as was mentioned, if there's, a splash of gasoline from, dripping from the nozzle, that sort of thing. We do have, and I don't see him in here, our Assistant Chief of Logistics actually manages, he was in here earlier, I think he had to actually respond on an event. He works with some of the vendors that we use that actually refill our tanks at each of our existing stations to ensure those tanks have to be inspected. They have, they're baffled, there's emergency shutoffs, so just like we have at any other, I'm assuming at any other gas station. As far as fire mitigation, this may sound funny, but all of our fire apparatus actually are also able to mitigate those with various fire suppression means that we have for those. I'm not aware of that ever happening at any of our stations, but obviously, as you mentioned, being prepared for everything. As far as the specifics on the tanks themselves and how often they're inspected, I don't know that information off the top of hand. I know our Assistant Chief of Logistics has all that information. Unfortunately, he just stepped out, but I'm happy to, I could send you an email.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I raise that since I've had some personal experience with that. I can talk to you after the hearing regarding that. Those are my questions for now. Councilmember Figueroa has some additional questions, so I'll yield to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to, hopefully if it can be done, is that, and it probably already has maybe, but those parties, I don't know if you know, I know the staff does, but the fire department, about our city's engagement with certain parties down below with drainage of stormwater, and it was quite contentious and so forth. I won't go through all the details, but it took quite a bit. So I'd like to make sure that all those parties that were involved with all that, specifically, I know sometimes public notices go out and they just go out. I think that we should target those interested parties that we had to deal with specifically to make sure they understand this is going on and let them come in with questions to you and staff and concerns. I think that would be, make sure that they understand what's going on and they have the ability, but I think that they should be specifically targeted and mailed or notified. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing that there are no further questions here on the dais, does any speaker have any comments solely to clarify any items raised by a council member? If so, please provide that now. And if there are no issues to be presented, and please do not repeat yours or any other person's previous testimony. So with that said, your comments should be limited to clarifying anything that was raised by council, but I do believe that that has already been taken care of, so we can continue to move beyond that. So there being no further comments, I'm going to close this portion of the hearing, and it is now in order for the council to discuss this matter and for the council members to make a motion to take action on action or remand. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, I make a motion to pass an ordinance of the City Council of the City of University Place, Washington, approving a quasi-judicial rezone, RZN 26-0001, and amending the University Place official zoning map to apply the public facility overlay to the property located at parcel number 022-022-4043.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded. Does any council member wish any additional briefing on the matter related to this issue? And remember that any supplemental briefing must be in the form of argument and no additional facts. Councilmember Figueroa.
Yes, I believe because of the traffic that goes around, it's not so far from that intersection, and we have a major store there and more development. I believe that, along with what I had mentioned before about notifications to certain parties because of the drainage and all that, it's also Fred Myers and any other key people that have their traffic to make sure that they're specifically notified with a special notification, and let them make sure that they have an understanding and have the ability to comment on future traffic impacts, because it will, as well as some of the developments and people that have come out of those residentials and housing to the right. I mean, they're all going to be coming out. So anyway, that's my last comment. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Are there any further comments? Okay. Seeing that there's none and there's no further recommendations or comments from council or staff at this time, I'm going to ask if the clerk would please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Figueroa.
Yay.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Yes.
Councilmember Grassi.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey.
Yes.
And Mayor Fleming.
Aye.
Mayor, vote result 5 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, on to the next. All right, thank you all for your time tonight. All right, with that said, we're going to move to item number 9. This is the city manager and council comments and reports. We'll begin with our city manager, Mr. Sugg.
Yes, Mayor, council members, members of the public here, and those watching online. Mayor, council, as you probably already know, and I think Public Works Director Jack Eklund notified you earlier this month that there is the city's annual chip seal program where we manage pavements by resurfacing streets, and that program is continuing this year and will start on July 27th. Weather dependent, of course. We need dry conditions in order to implement that program. We're going to be focusing primarily on about 8 miles of local roads and local streets in the northwest section of our city. The specific map is available online, and we'll certainly make that available to you. But that's starting July 27th. It'll extend for a couple weeks to get that work done. Pierce County that work is done through our street contract with Pierce County, which their Pierce County folks, crews do that work. They have specific equipment for that, and they've been doing that for the city of University Place for a number of years. Again, about 8 miles of streets will be resurfaced this summer in the northwest section of our city. We'll brief you more on that as that gets underway. And then with respect to summer events, they continue with Music on the Square this Wednesday, July 22nd from 6 to 8 p.m. And then the following day, on Thursday, out at the current Apple Orchard, July 23rd, there's the first of four concerts at that orchard for this summer. Again, Thursday, July 23rd from 6:30 to 8. And that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sugg. Reports from council. We'll start with Councilmember Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to everyone that's in chambers this evening, and it's wonderful to be here. Thank you, City Manager, for that update on the current Apple Orchard concerts. Every Thursday, I think. Is it this Thursday? No, it's next Thursday. It's next Thursday.
I'm sorry.
It's finally here.
Did I say this Thursday? It's actually it is this Thursday.
It is this. I'm saying I've been getting it wrong because I've been waiting for it. I've been eagerly looking forward to it. So I attended our Market Square, Music in the Square, and it's been wonderful. So looking forward to the current Apple Orchard concert. It's always a highlight. I want to say a special thank you to the owner of Alex's Safe Place, and a thank you to Dawn, the wife of our fabulous engineer, who hosted me at her fabulous farm and has extended an invitation to all of council to visit this amazing place right here in our city, located right off of Alameda, behind Creekside. I had no idea that this incredible farm existed in our city, and it's called Alex's Safe Place for healing for children, for veterans with PTSD. She has horses, llamas, alpacas, kangaroo, bunnies. I mean, she runs the gamut, and it is a wonderful healing place. And she's just doing her first day camp this week for kids, completely free. And so I just want to thank her for hosting me this week and showing me her property. And then I also extend the invitation to our council to do a site visit together. So hopefully we can get that on the calendar as well. I also attended Locks and Legislators with Councilmember Boykin. I want to say thank you to Congresswoman Strickland for that invitation to join an important community dialogue with the Jewish community, and also Mari Levitt as well. Thank her for being there. It was an important time of discussion, and I was so grateful that Councilmember Boykin and I got to represent the South Sound in that conversation up in Mercer Island. And so thank you to Congresswoman Strickland's office for the invitation. And finally, my small business highlight, of course, I want to say a shout out to Serenity Spa right here in our Market Square, specifically Chelsea. I had the best massage I've ever had, and it's right here. So in the spirit of wellness, Mayor Pro Tem, you would appreciate this. If you're looking for a space for wellness, Serenity Spa, I'm so excited to know that they're here, and it was a wonderful experience. So I encourage you to go and check them out. And then a personal thank you to the city of Sumner and to East Pierce and Central Pierce Fire. I had the honor of officiating the funeral for my cousin and councilman of the city of Sumner, Greg Rinke. And that city, how they honored their council member that had passed away was just truly extraordinary. The whole city came together. So if I can just utilize my platform for a moment to say thank you to the city of Sumner. You showed us all how to honor one of your community members and local firefighter. It was just a wonderful time. So thank you to Sumner and for all that they've done to love on that family. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you
Very much. Councilmember Figueroa.
No comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilmember Cunningham.
Yes, hi. I feel like I've been gone a really long time. I missed my first council meeting, so I missed everyone and everything, and I feel like life has passed me by. So I know you guys touched on our AWC. That was the last thing I recall doing, and I just want to say thank you so much for sending me. I learned so much, and it was a great place to have your first, dip in the pond of politics, I guess, with all of our Washington State Council members. So it was great. I was proud to be able to represent the flag ceremony for our City of University Place, and all of the colleagues were at the end because U is very far down the alphabet. So I got to watch everybody else go before it was our turn. And then it was also such an honor to be a voting delegate for us to represent the body of AWC. So I thank you so much, Mayor, for giving me the rundown and putting me up to do all the things. My first go, it was definitely hazing and at its best.
Hayes.
It was so good, and it was a great experience, and we had such a great few days in Spokane, so thank you so much. Recently, I was called upon from a Boy Scout just downstairs last week, and he needed to interview an elected official because he's earning a badge, and he needed to find out what we do, why we do it, and how do you get involved. And so it was great. I think 3 questions turned into 14 or 15. So he had a lot of questions, and he kept saying, well, this isn't on my list, but I just have to ask. And so we sat downstairs, and it was great because they're watching us, young people. He goes to Narrows View Middle School, so it was exciting to help do that. I brought him upstairs so he can see what it looks like up here, and he was fascinated. He's interested in the Arts Commission. So he said in a couple years he wants to apply, and he wants to come to council meetings. And I showed him where he would sit and where you can pick up the agenda and what we do. I told him that sometimes it is a little bit of a yawn, so be prepared for that, but be excited. And he was really, really excited and engaged. And he had his uniform on, and he was just flabbergasted at how politics work in our community. So that was exciting to do. And then the last thing I've done is it was cool to be part of FirCrest Fund Days. Interlocal partnerships are important, and making sure that our neighboring cities feel supported by us, and we do this. They do the same for us. And so it was great to spend Saturday with the council members over in FirCrest to support their FirCrest Fund Days, and the weather held up, and it was great to be part of that and to show the support for our neighboring community. So it's been a good week, and look forward to our summer of activities and all of my firsts. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And if that was hazing at AWC, it was certainly done with love and admiration. So
Exactly.
there you go. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I am excited that you got a Boy Scout excited about our Arts and Culture Commission.
Very much.
Very cool. So thank you for promoting that. And thank you for representing us at AWC. Yes. So I've, along with Mayor Fleming, the Pierce County Regional Council meeting, we attended that last Thursday. Pierce County Transit did a presentation, as well as the Pierce County Library, and I believe Pierce County Transit may be coming to us. I think they requested. No? Okay. Well, maybe not. So anyway, there were some updates there. The Pierce County Transit is doing some reconfiguration of their lines and adding additional services. They're concentrating a lot in the metropolitan area of Tacoma and trying to get feeder lines into that heart of it. They are talking about doing a little tweaking in University Place as far as their timing of the buses. They want to, instead of every 30 minutes, do it every 15 or 20 minutes. But our lines remain the same. There's no additional lines, unfortunately. So the services are going out into some of the rural areas, but from looking at the map, and the mayor concurs with me, it's not enough. So, but they're going to come out with a 1% over 1% sales tax to the voters to augment that. So look at the grid and see if that is something that you would like to support. They are doing additional paratransit services and along with some other support services to get people to their medical appointments and things like that. And also addressing transit from the outlying areas into the bus transportation system too. So they're augmenting those things. So those are all good things that they're adding to that. And Pierce County Library did a report on their the state of the library and how that's transitioning and how that they are getting more customer service oriented, meeting the customers where they're at, sometimes being mobile and going to them. They do note that there is a substantial increase in e-books that are being loaned out to individuals. So they're vibrant, they're current, they're going. They're also adding an additional programming for ages preschool up until first or second grade. So, and we have one of the best libraries downstairs. So if you haven't been in there and haven't seen all the things that they could do, from computer services to tech help to job services, I encourage you to go there and enjoy all the amenities. You know, they are not the library of 50 years ago. They have certainly changed and transcended into well beyond the 21st century. I have the honor of representing our City of University Place at the National League of Cities Summer Conference in Louisville, Kentucky, along with my fellow council member, Frank Boykin. Councilmember Boykin is on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and we share on the Small Cities Council together. So I will allow Councilmember Boykin to report out on his transportation and infrastructure. I sent the summary of the Small Cities Council report to my fellow council members a few days ago. And basically, the small cities are trying to get together and create their legislative priorities and to funnel that into a direction for the National League's overall support services. The National League of Cities is a lobby organization and also has a lot of support services for our cities through all the aspects of arts and culture, to our infrastructure, to transit, to ongoing training. So they've been around 100 years, and they're quite an asset to if council members can take advantage of that by just going on their website. They went through several different federal updates. I'm on the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resource Committee, so I did a lot of mobile sessions out to botanical gardens that was built on an old dump. So they're repurposing that, and they're halfway done. They're fundraising for the second half along the waterfront of the Ohio River, and what they have done is beautiful. They have a waterfall in there, they have a running brook and stream, and a meandering walkway through it. The waterfront redevelopment and park is a well over 7-acre park along the waterfront that they had reclaimed, repurposed, and also are cleaning up the environment there. They have trees. You name it, they have it in this park. Trees, playground structures, an intensive trail system. You could probably go for about 10 miles along the waterfront to include the park. I visited Nulu, which is a creative art district that is up and coming, that is also developing transit and bike lanes, and it's evolving into a very colorful, happening place. It's called Nulu because it's New Louisville, so they just shortened it to Nulu to get it a little hip and happening sort of vibe to it. So it's a creative space, and they're hoping to attract more creative nationally to come into Nulu. In my Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee, we talked about data center ordinance process and how that was created by Louisville, and primarily going after the larger data centers that take up a lot of our energy and our water. Nuclear energy, we had an overview on what the new nuclear energy resources are and how that is evolving and designed. We talked about an airport geothermal project that they turned a parking lot as well as a airline storage place. So they did a pavement over all this huge area, but underneath it is a thermal project that creates energy and support for the airport and some of the outer lying areas. Talked about how to do an urban heat mapping, and also some of the criteria about tree canopy and what would make that more successful, and some of the best practices along those lines. And the 21st Century Road to Housing was passed federally by both the House and the Senate, and so that is now law. So that will be opening up more opportunities for affordable housing, infrastructure, transportation dollars. So we all celebrated big time when that bill was able to pass. So there's a lot of more grant funding availability for affordable housing nationally as well. I would like to give a shout out to, on August 1st, we're having our movie in the park. The movie is Sandlot, which I love, it's kind of centered around Babe Ruth in in respect to the baseball. But if you have never seen that fun movie, you should have the opportunity to do so. It's a great Americana movie. Baseball is the American sport, and the Sultan of Swag will certainly have that part in the story of how I grew up, how I learned to play baseball. Was not in school, was not in organized sports, was organized in our neighborhood kiddos who were interested, and we met up somewhere, created teams, and we played a heck of a lot of baseball. Got a lot of scraped knees too. Dance Theater Northwest on August 8th is doing their showcase in the atrium. It's a very beautifully done, choreographed event. I would recommend to go to it, and if you have never been, you will be blown off your socks once you see how the creative director, Melanie Christopher, puts on her ballets. So I highly recommend going to those two events, along with the other events that Councilmember Grassi and our city manager, Mr. Sugg, have mentioned. And I'll conclude my report on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll be quick on a couple of things. One, just a shout out to the road crews. They have been doing a phenomenal job. I was watching them doing the fog lines on some of our roads. They're looking great. I appreciate the work they're doing out there. I won't belabor the PCRC meeting that the Mayor Pro Tem and I attended, other than to make the comment that the Pierce Transit tax increase proposal, as she stated, really benefits the city of Tacoma and really doesn't address the concerns in the outlying areas or communities such as ours. So I do have concerns about that tax that will be coming before the citizens to approve here shortly. And then lastly, again, just to reiterate to our community and our citizens, on the August 1st that you mentioned, the movie in the park, it's also celebrating America's 250th. It's going to be an exciting time. There's a lot of activities. There's some great bands that are going to be out there playing. We've got the hot air balloon, I believe, returning for that event. So something for everyone on that particular date. I think it kicks off around 4:30 in the afternoon and will go to whenever. So a great celebration, great party time for the city. So mark your calendars for that. All right, seeing that there's no other reports before council tonight, let's move and recess now to study session. And the first item on our agenda tonight is the comprehensive plan for climate change element. And I guess, Kenneth George, you're back in the hot seat.
To be on the agenda, I might as well stack them up. But for this particular item, you won't have to listen to me for too much. Once again, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Tonight, staff, along with our consultant team here with me, will be introducing a new project from the Community and Economic Development Department. This project will result in the creation of a new planning element that will be incorporated into the city's comprehensive plan. The new element will provide a framework for climate planning and implementation and help advance the city's climate action plan goals. It will also ensure the city is in alignment with new state climate planning requirements under the Growth Management Act, which we'll detail later in the presentation. To help with this work, the city was fortunate to secure a climate planning grant from the Washington State Department of Commerce. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our consultant team from Kinley Horn and Triangle Associates to introduce themselves, walk us through tonight's presentation, and leave time at the end for questions and discussion.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the time today. We really appreciate being on the agenda. My name is Erin O'Kelly. I'm the project manager. I'm a new face to a University Place, but our team certainly is not a new face. Principal in charge on the project, Clay White, worked on University Place's Housing Action Plan. I've been a planner myself for 8 years, started in land use and transportation, and have in the last 5 years done resilience planning for cities, climate planning, and some GHG as well. I'll have my colleague introduce herself in a moment, but she's a very familiar face to UP. She's excited to be back here. So this is an introductory presentation. So I'm going to be going over a lot of foundational components of the project, a lot of background, a little bit of GMA, and then going over really what the expectations are, hitting on some high-level project objectives, what we're trying to accomplish, and then talking a little bit about how we intend to get that done, so a little bit of schedule, a little bit of engagement. We intentionally will be doing a shortened presentation because we really would love to hear thoughts from the council, just early thoughts on concerns, questions, anything about the project, what you hope to achieve about the project, and then we have some engagement discussions as well about our approach to the project we would like to get from you. This way? No? Okay, you can go to the next one. All right. So this is the climate element. It's called the climate element because it is foundational in now the Growth Management Act comprehensive plan mandatory elements. So this has been included as part of a requirement for all cities and counties in their comprehensive plan, which means it follows a similar process of adoption to the comprehensive plan. There's a lot of similar administrative review we have to do. So it now sits in the Growth Management Act planning goals as number 14, which the 15 goals that are included in the Growth Management Act have to be equally addressed in the comprehensive plan, and they all need to be in alignment. So there will be, while this is a new climate element, there will be a lot of components of us going and checking against the newly adopted comprehensive plan, making sure we are correctly aligned on the same direction as those elements as well. So there'll be a lot of cross-referencing of this new element versus the recently adopted comprehensive plan. Compared to the other elements in the Growth Management Act, this particular element has a heavier emphasis on implementation. So I'll get into what that means in a moment, but it has more stipulations about 5-year progress, especially for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. There are specifically milestones that the state expects us to identify in this new element that they will be coming back asking questions, how are we doing, making progress. So as part of this project, we have delegated quite a bit of time for policy prioritization with the council and stakeholders, hoping to also have at least a couple-month period to talk about what implementation looks like for this new climate element. So I particularly want to bring this up to you guys ahead of time, thinking about what does it look like annually for the council, trying to understand introducing these new little actions in consideration of all the other things you guys have to do on a yearly basis, right? So trying to make sure things are feasible and reasonable to accomplish and achieve, and that's kind of a focus of the project as well. Oh, wait. So I mentioned this before, but this is going to sit within the comprehensive plan document. So it'll be adopted. It follows the same annual docket process of comprehensive plans for cities and counties. So when we're talking about the new climate element, you also want to be thinking about, okay, how do these new climate considerations impact our current land use situation? How do they impact the transportation, and how do they impact the housing that we're planning for the next 20 years? That is expected for us to go back and review as part of these new considerations. So when we're looking at what we'll talk about as part of the climate element is the anticipated priority hazards, the climate exacerbated hazards that the City of University Place is facing. We have to think about and what's that impact on parks, what's that impact on the capital facilities, and I'll explain. There's a methodology and an assessment that we do as kind of part of that workflow.
It was turned off.
Oh, So diving a little more deep into what the climate element is, if you look at components of a climate action plan, this really hits a lot of the same marks, a lot of the same objectives. A climate action plan looks at the two ways that you can combat climate change. You can reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, so stopping from producing more and making the climate change worse. So this is looking at the sources and transportation, electricity, all of those things that emit emissions. And that's typically like a mitigation component of a climate action plan. So in Washington State, it's just the GHG sub-element. And then the second component of a climate action plan is usually we know that there's now going to be some issues because we've already put enough GHG emissions into the atmosphere. It's going to cause problems. Now, how are we going to protect from those anticipated issues or impacts is what we call them. What's the impact going to be on people? What's the impact going to be on physical places and infrastructure? And then what are the small little steps that we can start doing to make sure that if that happens, we're going to be fine. It'll be okay. We can bounce back from that, which is the resilience component. In a climate action plan, it's usually called the adaptation chapter. So looking a little more into the details, these are the three Growth Management Act requirements that the state will be expected is addressed in the climate element. It really just dives more into the strategies, what's expected for cities and counties to mitigate these two. So reducing GHG from transportation and land use. So it is expected that the city will, based on the greenhouse gas emissions inventory we're completing for you, there will be a specific strategy about reducing vehicle miles traveled. How are we going to get people to be walking more? How are we going to get people to use the bus more? And then we also need to be looking at how is land use contributing to these emissions. For a built-out city like University Place, it's a little easier to, you guys are more in like a pivoted like growth center mindset at this point because you're all built out. So you're typically aligned in your land use and transportation with the GHG, but for a city that still has a lot of like empty vacant land that is considering suburb development, that's usually not in alignment with GHG kind of practices. So that's what they want you to do, is they want you to check, are you encouraging development that's going to increase vehicle miles traveled? We do a check on that, and that's why we go back and look at the land use element as well. We do specifically have to have an environmental justice component. It is expected that you prioritize policies that help overburdened communities as well. So as part of our risk and vulnerability assessment, we look at environmental health indicators and follow PSRC's guidelines. The greenhouse gas emissions inventory also considers these components. So we do identify areas of the city that have a higher environmental justice relevance, higher populations of like pollution exposure, vulnerabilities of disability, age, and youth. Age is that. In the resilience component, it is expected that we discuss how your existing natural systems are contributing to your resiliency. So this is where we talk about tree canopy. This is where tree canopy contributes to shading, which helps prevent from extreme heat exposure. We are specifically addressing in the climate element, we need to talk about each climate exacerbated hazard isolated that the city of UP may face. So, like generally that's like flooding, wildfire, smoke, extreme heat, sea level rise. Those are kind of the big ones. And then there's a couple like secondary impacts from those, like landslide, coastal intrusion stuff. So we kind of talk about those in isolation as well. Does anyone have any questions at this point?
I do.
Yeah.
I appreciate everything you're sharing here tonight, and I know for the longest time, and I know most recently Mayor Pro Tem and I have had conversations about the tree canopy and how important that is in this overall picture that you're painting. My concern, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, my concern has always been, in our city, we allow clear cut for development. And so we have removed since our inception, large portions of evergreen forest that provided that tree canopy year round. And we've replaced it with deciduous trees. So we get tree canopy in the summer and you have nothing in the winter, except for in sporadic areas. How does a model or a policy like that play into what you're driving at here as far as the program that we're talking about tonight?
I mean, I think it would really, we would probably be wanting to look at what you're trying to achieve. There's a lot of different reasons you look at your tree canopy, and so it'd really be like what we're trying to mitigate with that tree canopy. If it is like a shade issue that you're talking about, obviously specific trees are more beneficial for that. If you're looking at overall like carbon sequestration, there's a certain number of different trees are eligible for that. So when you're going through the tree canopy like review process, or it's really that tree canopy assessment, you actually do, the city looks through kind of those values of like what are the marks we need to hit with our tree canopy, what was existing before, what do we need to remediate back in, and you're supposed to you kind of come up with your own cocktail of it. And then I'm actually not a tree canopy expert, so I can't provide any additional details based on that, but it would be what you were trying to achieve. If you're looking at what the climate element is it's like the policies built around the benefit you're trying to create.
Well, certainly part of the benefit is a healthier community, right? So, if you're, and we may be thinking about this all wrong. So I guess I kind of look to the experts to say, yeah, we're on target, or no, we probably ought to rethink it. But, the carbon footprint is a big deal. And if you can address your carbon footprint pretty well in the summertime, but you're not doing so well in the wintertime, are we truly adopting best practices? So that's kind of where I wrestle with our current policies. And the question I'm always asking is, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing a good thing? Or could we do better if we did something different? So that's what I'm really interested in hearing about.
I think we will definitely have a lot more discussion on the role that trees play in climate and GHG. They can serve different purposes, and so happy to, but it's really, I appreciate the feedback and excited to discuss more when we've kind of fleshed through a little bit more of the analysis.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem has a question.
Yeah, to tag team on Mayor in regards to the trees, are we doing heat mapping in University Place and identifying the tree deserts that we may have?
We have already done an urban heat island index. We typically do, for our methodology, we do a combination of tree cover. I don't think impermeable surface or impervious surface is included at this point. And then we take, it might be, I'd have to double check. And then we take the land use as well, typically like if it's heavy commercial, we just do a high-level classification of commercial, industrial, residential. And we do a composite score of that and get an urban heat island index. That is what we use to address extreme heat vulnerability as part of the risk assessment. And it can be incorporated into a tree canopy. Urban heat index is usually like one component of a methodology of a tree canopy study.
Okay. Are you going to have any recommendations for a tree replacement policy in University Place? Louisville has one that establishes the goal of 30% canopy per neighborhood.
It's really, I mean, like, I don't want to over-assume the outcomes of the analysis. Like, we typically work with staff and work with you guys to understand what you want. There's certainly a world, and other cities have done this, where they quantify carbon sequestration of trees, and that's the number they want to hit. Or they quantify a certain percentage of shade that they want to provide in their urban centers, and that's the number they want to hit. Or they have a combination of both. So that's kind of what I mean by the metrics. If you had like an area of that was just like totally barren of trees, you might have a really high target that you'd want to hit for that area. So it's just, once we look at the data, it kind of fleshes out a little bit more of like, yeah, you could really use some tree support over here. Or you could also have a general tree, goal based on what was there previously historically.
Okay, so as this council member, I would like to have the heat as well as the carbon. So, a blend of those, because I think we have both in our city that we can certainly address and improve on. Also, diverse green spaces, bioswales and the mediums, how we can improve that as well. We also currently are working on health and all policies to go through that lens as you go through this document, because that's going to be hopefully the keystone to identifying things that we may or may not want to consider based on the impacts of health and wellness components. At least it will be part of the policy dialogue. For that. Then the other, there is called a Miyakiwa. I can't even, it's a Japanese name. Miyakawaki, Miyawaki. It is a globally well-known method, a popular tree planting technique. By the namesake, he's a Japanese botanist. So planting, he looks at it with planting diverse native species densely together, creating their own ecosystem. And that creates a competition for sun, and along with planting for the climate change. So what's unique in our area and how we can plant towards that. In 4 distinct layers, we talked about the canopy, the sub-canopy, the understory, and the ground covering. So each area, and the maintenance and sustainability improves on that. So you have less maintenance and more sustainability in the overall run of things. And then we have the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency, which I think you alluded to as well, for greenhouse gases. We buy into the agency, and so maybe looking at what they have so we can dovetail and create a bigger bang for our buck with what they're doing. And I believe one of their goals is the carbon dioxide of the cars, the exhaust, and like you indicated, to reduce the amount of people using their cars to get to different places. And that kind of dovetails into what the Pierce County Transit is kind of doing and sort of, ignoring. So we would like to reduce trips overall, But if we don't have an efficient, effective way to do it that is in a timely manner, it's not going to be used. And so maybe to look at our grid, what we currently have, and identify things that could improve for our citizens to use it, and then we could take that to Pierce County Transit and do some recommendations in hopes that maybe the next iteration things could be improved for University Place, and it transcends into the region as well with that, because we are a main corridor along Bridgeport. And there is, I would like, there's something called SharePoint, and I believe you mentioned it in your document. I will be really curious to be part of the observer on SharePoint to see how it's going and what's going on. Yeah, I'm not going to go in there and say, you should do this, do that, but I'm kind of nosy, and I would like to know how the process is going and all the things that make that up, because it is my lane, and what I gather here I will take to the national stage too through the NLC, because I'm on the, as you probably have heard in this meeting, on the energy, environment, natural resources, and I'm also now on the AWC, gathering federal priorities for their legislative requests. And so all that will sort of dovetail into it. So the more information I can get about all how to improve our environment, that would be much appreciated. So if I could be part of that SharePoint, or if I can, to the city attorney to make sure I'm staying in my lane. So thank you.
Yeah,
that's
we
all
really
I have.
appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see anyone else, so please continue.
Yeah. So again, I'm just providing some baseline information really on the process, the administrative process we're going through. So obviously the top is really the funnel down from the state law all the way down to implementation of these kinds of policies for the comprehensive plan. Underneath is really what we're doing, the Kimley Horn team, throughout this process to really make sure we're being good stewards of your climate, the new climate element, and making sure we're doing the best we can to really be the best partners, as you guys say. So we're consistently checking and ensuring that we're following the new state laws. We do speak with Commerce very regularly to double check that if there's any new materials produced or expectations and deliverables. Regional coordination, we've certainly already started. We do reach out to our partners, so really excited if you guys have any more of those groups like Puget Sound Clean Air Agency that we could need to reach out to and coordinate with. That would be a great time tonight, or feel free to email me, because we're already reaching out to multiple Pierce County groups, the King County, the Small Cohorts Communities Program, speaking with them as well. Anyone we can to make sure we're in alignment regionally is amazing, working with PSRC as well. And then the largest part of the project obviously is the data collection component, and then developing the policies based on those findings. And then my colleague tonight will speak on the engagement, so I'm not going to tread on her steps. And then again, the implementation is a pretty important component of this as well. Awesome. Okay, so a little bit more on how we intend to get this done. There's really a couple, 4 key milestones and deliverables that we would come back to you guys and say, hey, we did it. We'd love to hear your feedback at this point. So first is the data collection and analysis phase. We will be making 2 reports based on this, and the reports are expected to be first drafted in September. What we usually like to do is do a first draft, provide it to the council, hear feedback, concerns, issues, and then issue a second draft final, because we like to make sure we're covering our bases, or if there's clarity or issues. So you'd probably see a first draft of the report in September. The GHG inventory report, that is what we would use to set a baseline of emissions. So it would identify, here's the emissions right now for University Place. And then it would say you need to establish a goal by 2030 of how you're going to reduce your emissions, and then another goal by 2050. And then you are anticipated to have strategies that you're hopefully slowly working on every year to kind of reach those goals. But the inventory report is just the initial first number, and then the policy prioritization is the goal and the strategies and the goal and the strategies. So after September, we'd be working on those strategies with you and like fine-tuning that goal. The risk and vulnerability assessment is, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but it is intended to, we're supposed to be collecting all of the community's assets, which is the physical assets. It's also people, it's also growth centers, it's economic assets, it's really anything that the city wants to be considered as part of the community important. And we go through a system of reviewing each hazard, how vulnerable is this particular asset to this hazard, who would be impacted if this hazard were to happen, what's the severity of the issue, is there any way that the community could recover if that was completely gone, and then we go through this like series of steps and we ultimately determine a final like risk score for that asset. So an example of this would be we would eventually find some streets in the city that are more vulnerable to flooding or stormwater than others, and they would have a higher risk score. They might even have a higher score if populations of like environmental health indicators or vulnerable populations live in that area. We might bump that score up a little bit. And you'd be, we have a full, the report contains like the full methodology of this reasoning. And this is why we issue a draft, because sometimes we'll get feedback from the community of like, well, we think this is especially concerning and it should be treated such. So we would go bump the score up to a higher risk for the final report as well. Then we obviously have the citywide engagement, stakeholder engagement as a key deliverable of this. We are doing continuous public participation following the Growth Management Act as part of this process. We've already started to prepare. We really apologize we missed the duck days, but we really appreciate the time to do some preliminary data collection and analysis. We're very excited to be hanging out with you guys for the movie in the park, though. We will be there, and we're looking forward to it. And then, as I mentioned before, the primary component of this whole project is prioritizing the policies and thinking about how we're going to achieve the GHG action. So that's why we're really trying to get the data analysis done early so that we could, through the winter, work on some analysis or like some strategies with staff, and then hopefully through 2027 vet strategies regionally, vet with stakeholders, and then eventually have you guys have ample time to vet those strategies as well and do some prioritization and maybe some implementation as well.
Who are some of the stakeholders that you've identified?
I don't want to interrupt her presentation, but she will identify the list that they have. And I actually will just briefly touch on this. We are convening the climate advisory team, but she's going to talk more about the engagement in detail. So we are anticipated to be doing phase 1 data collection and analysis through October. Like I said, we issue like a preliminary report. We still want to leave opportunity to go work with stakeholders and then finalize our report. And then in 2027, we'll be doing all of the agency coordination and working with the Planning Commission and Council. Okay, since we have so many questions.
Wonderful. Hi, my name is Bridget Mullins. I'm with Triangle Associates. We are partnering with Kimley Horn. We're a facilitation and community engagement firm. We supported with engagement for University Place's comprehensive plan. We're currently doing some engagement in Day Island, so have some familiarity with your constituents here. So one of the core things that we're always asking and working on these is how do we do the climate element the University Place way? And what is it that your constituents care about? So I want to talk first just about some of the general principles and strategies that we think about when we do community engagement, and then I'll share about some of the stakeholders that we're going to be reaching out to. So first of all, just to say, we really orient around this by trying to meet people where they are. So we're paying attention to where do people already gather. That could be like big public events, like Movie in the Park that's coming up. It can also be standing meetings and gatherings that people are already hosting. So we're going to try to do as much as possible to show up where people are already coming together. We also orient around using what we ask. And so the timing is really important here. We try to do engagement at points where we have data or policy ideas or implementation strategies that we really want to hear meaningful feedback from people on. And then providing opportunities for all, so really looking to have a multifaceted approach. Online, in person, different kinds of formats, big public events, small group conversations, interviews, so that we meet people where they are in terms of how they want to participate. So some of the strategies for this plan in particular will of course be looking to reach some of the general public through big community events and pop-ups. We'll be using some of the survey mechanisms that you already have, like Flash Vote, alongside some other survey tools that we can use to get that kind of participation. We will also be forming a climate advisory team. And the purpose of this team is to be, a more intentional group of people across different kinds of stakeholder groups that can go into more in-depth conversations around different policy or implementation strategy ideas that we have and be a sounding board for those ideas. So just as an example, you're talking about Pierce Transit. I just had a conversation with some of their staff today for them to participate on the climate advisory team so that we ensure that they're hearing about what University Place is thinking about in terms of the climate elements and can coordinate as best as possible. We're also reaching out to the library, to some of the business sector, to commissioners, to various organizations that serve community in different ways to be part of that climate advisory team too. So that advisory team we'll be meeting primarily looking at end of August through end of October to really be providing some targeted input as the analysis comes through and we start to develop some draft ideas. Additionally, we'll be looking at just other stakeholder focus groups, one-on-one interviews. We've had a lot of success just doing outreach tables at the library downstairs before, where we catch a lot of different people who pass through here in the coffee shop. Obviously, keeping you all updated in the ways that you want to be engaged and involved, and then keeping up-to-date information on website newsletters, etc.
Have you thought about adding the school district to your team?
Yes, we have reached out to the school district. We're still waiting to hear back from them for the climate advisory team, as well as looking for some youth engagement opportunities. So this is just a brief snapshot. This is not comprehensive, what we had on the slide, but we wanted to give some ideas of different groups that we are reaching out to. So Rotary Club, Library, Day Island Social Club, various organizations serving impacted communities, Families Unlimited Network, YMCA. We've reached out to the Fire and Rescue Station as well to be part of the climate advisory team from the safety and resilience perspective. The Economic Development Advisory Commission, various groups within the environment and education space. We talked with Tahoma Bird Alliance today as an example for their participation as well. They have a member that's going to be on the climate advisory team. And then we have sent letters to tribal governments with treaty rights in this area through government-to-government work, and we'll follow however they want to be engaged if we hear back from them around this planning effort as well. So what we would love to hear from...
Excuse me, we do have a question on the dais, Councilmember Cunningham.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what the response was from the commissions that we have.
So we have a couple of preliminary conversations set up with the Planning Commission, and I believe the Economic Development Advisory Commission. We're still waiting to hear back from Parks Advisory and Public Safety.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. And we would love to hear from you, like what other groups come to mind, what meetings, what gathering spaces, what should we have on our radar, who else comes to mind that we should be reaching out to?
Who's your point of contact?
Who on our team?
Yeah, you were saying have council reach out to you. Who would they be reaching out to?
Oh, you're welcome to reach out to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anytime.
I think, are we opening up?
Yeah, we can open.
Okay. We do have some final questions that we wanted to pose to the council. I think just generally we were looking for, it seems like you guys were asking your questions throughout, but we're happy to answer any more questions on the actual element and process. We really wanted to know what components of the project are you most interested in, and what components of the project are you concerned about, have misgivings about, or first thoughts on this project?
You're putting the council on the spot. I don't think they're ready to respond at the moment.
I thought that was an easy one.
Oh, nope, the hands are coming up. Councilmember Figueroa.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I do have a comment and concern, and that is you can go for the top of the line plan and recommendations, or somewhere in between and someone low. I think that the cost to anything that you're recommending, I'd like to see a cost impact at different levels. If you want to go to the top, this is the estimated cost and the different parts of that. And if you want to just maybe do this, in other words, you know, we should have a choice to look at something, at least the minimum is what the minimum would be from the state. Mm-hmm. The state says you got to have minimally this, and I think that needs to be highlighted. What is it that they're requiring minimally? And if you're doing anything above that, we should note that that is above what the state is requiring. And why are you recommending that and the cost? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. Well, I mentioned a lot of things that I would like to see come back for discussion. The other component is our stormwater runoff and how that impacts our environment as well. And also, you talked about the flooding on University Place. I have as you know, a vested interest in what comes out of that and how and the recommended pathways forward in that. But the water runoff, I get citizens emailing me here and there on occasion where stormwater comes through their property, and how that could be mitigated for soil erosion, contamination, and things like that. Have you thought about talking to the Pierce County Health Department as well?
Yes, that's a great recommendation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Grouse.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your thorough presentation, and I know this is a lot of work. I want to just a couple of things when we are talking about public engagement, which I'm passionate about. I do think it's really important. We're putting a lot in front of them, but I feel like sometimes it's a lot of inside baseball, and they don't know what we're talking about. They don't know what GMA is. They don't know comprehensive. So how much of this is a little bit of the education to bring people up to what are these basic things that we understand and have a framework for that they've never heard before, and how much do you go forward from there? Is there a little bit back and forward as well as in your engagement always?
Yeah, I would say I'll let Bridget speak as well, but I would say our strategy is speaking in plain language, and it's really speaking in not legalese, and it's really focusing on what is this in the community and what is the outcome in the community, and just focusing on real world impacts to a daily resident, and not this is policy blah blah blah, but talking about real world examples is what we try and do in the content. And do you want to add to that?
I think that you named it really well, and I'm just really appreciating your question and affirming that. I think a big part of this is capacity building and education, and we do that through language that people can recognize as things that they see in their life or experience in their life, and also do it through kind of building a baseline through activities that are also interactive and fun. We see this a lot in working with families in particular, and love doing things that involve parents working alongside youth and children, because if everyone can understand it, then like we're moving in the right direction. And it's easy for people to connect with, benefits that they can see themselves in.
Right. Mm-hmm. Great. And just one more thing, but in relationship to groups that we should be contacting, when I see YMCA up there, I love it. But I also, back to your statement about working families together side by side, with our youth recreation coming up, I think a lot of presence with those first, games, soccer and mini camps and all of those things are low-hanging fruit, an easy way to connect with families and kids as well. So I think that's another opportunity, and also CORE as well is a great group to reach out to in our community. So I just want to thank you for the work, and it's a worthy endeavor and it's a heavy lift, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Listen. Okay, thank you. Go ahead and continue, please.
Oh, I think that's it. I think that's it. I think we covered our discussion questions. I do want to just really appreciate the time today, and thank you so much for our presentation. I'm sorry it was a little long. But yeah, really excited to come back and actually have some findings and discuss some stuff.
And hope to come to our tent at the Movie in the Park. We'll have glow sticks and candy.
You said candy, we'll be there.
Be there.
Thank you all very much. Let's move to item number 11, our citywide traffic modeling and information. We have with us tonight our Nuri Avicular, who's our city engineer, and Jordan Martin, who's our senior project engineer. Nuri, it's always good to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you all too. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. And as you mentioned, I'm Nuri Avicular, I'm the city engineer, and I have Jordan Martin with me, our senior project engineer. We will be presenting the citywide traffic model and information. And actually, not me, he's going to be presenting. I'm just going to turn this over to Jordan. We'll be talking about more numbers, not policies like the planners do.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Good to be back. Another rousing rendition of traffic for you guys. So I don't see my figures up, but I'm going to keep it brief. The program we have that models these wasn't capable of being on this computer, so got some still shots and some data, and then obviously we can show you that modeling at a different time. But okay. Do I click something?
Here we go.
All right. So here we go. You might have to click it for me. I don't know what this. Oh, there it goes. I got it. Okay. So we had a traffic consultant, PH Traffic, perform all of our intersection peak hour analysis in 2023. And that is modeled here on the map to the right. So these are our signalized intersections that are shown in the circles, various colors. You can see A's, B's, C's, and so on. And these represent the level of service that the intersection is seeing at the peak hour. So this is worst case scenario. You can see the definitions of level of service on the left. So an A is considered a free flow, low volume, And densities, minimal delay, so the average user is waiting 0 to 10. So someone could be waiting 20 seconds, somebody could be waiting 0. It's the average of all the traffic during that peak hour. Similarly, for the level of service B, it's a reasonably free flow, 10 to 20 second delay. A C is a 20 to 35 second delay. D is 35 to 55. E is unstable flow, 55 to 80 second delays, and F is 80 plus second delays. Now, these don't necessarily represent a grade or a score. It's just the relative typology that was provided. And feel free to jump in at any time with questions on this. So this was 2023 data provided. So with the comprehensive plan, we projected out similarly to the 27th Street business district data that we projected. So this is at a 1.5% traffic growth rate, which is considered the medium traffic growth rate. It's not related to the population. It's strictly related to the traffic flows. So you can see one side is our 2044 without improvements and 2044 with improvements. So a few of these drop into a score that's not quite the accepted minimum. So the accepted minimum for WashDOT and local municipalities is a level of service D. Some places, for instance, Lakewood, their entire Lakewood Boulevard or Silicon Boulevard has an accepted level of service of E or below. And similarly, Tacoma has corridor accepted level of service. So as long as the corridor averages a level of service E, they accept that as well. So there's varying degrees with that. So again, these were projected out. We did a 1.5% growth rate, added it to the value that was given to us in 2023. So this is just an example of that synchro model I was explaining. So this is 40th Street West and Bridgeport with the projected values out. And you can see it's got the normal intersection layout that you see today, and operating at a D. And then here is this is what you're allowed to do in synchro. So we added, on our 6-year tip, we proposed adding a through lane on the east and west directions on 40th. This seemed the most viable given the right-of-way limitations and what was already seen on Bridgeport. And so with adding another through lane in both the eastbound and westbound directions, it lowered the delay for the intersection as a whole, putting it at a C. So this is just kind of an example of what the program can do.
Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Sure.
So, back in the day, our model in the city was to build bypasses, and we built those. You look at Drexler, you look at Larson Lane, and so we built the roads, and then we've done absolutely nothing to encourage traffic to use those roads. Why aren't we taking a proactive approach to move traffic through the city by channeling it into those bypass roads that we built for that? That was the purpose of those.
Yeah, I think the adopted street grid for the city is still being pushed in those areas that are being proposed for future development. That street grid up and down Bridgeport just has been a very difficult area to connect. Like you said, Larson Lane, it stops right at the Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, so that one isn't quite completed, I guess, is what the short answer would be. I know the Alameda corridor has really helped 67th with that connection to bypass there. It's really...
How about Drexler?
Yeah, we're still working on Drexler, punching that through to 42nd. I think is still on the plans. It's still on the 6-year.
But it's already punched all the way through town center.
There's another connections on the Drexler go through the Borghese property.
Right.
Which hasn't been built yet.
Right, that's a different phase though, Neri. But when traffic comes into the town center area, we could still divert some of that through appropriate signage and bring them back through the roundabout and down what we currently have on Drexler and then down to 35th. Because if I understood correctly, that was our original goal until we punched through all the way to Borghese, that street back there behind his property. Am I wrong on that?
You are correct. Yes,
Okay.
that was for the whole purpose to have that grids for the new town center, which we don't. We still have the unimproved areas. That is going to be the final configuration, the final traffic grid. That will complete the entire system.
Okay.
And I believe we've implemented some wayfinding signs lately. At least Drexler Roundabout now has some, town center this way instead of pointing them up. And they're at 35th now, or 37th, I believe, in Bridgeport, pointing people down instead of heading south all the way. Similarly, on Grandview and 35th, there's a wayfinding sign also trying to point people down 35th instead. So I think that's at least an attempt for now.
And also, I think to create your statement, we also have seen some increase on Drexler. People leaving from the 35th Street, they usually take the Drexler to get to 40th Street. They head out to 67th. And it has helped a lot so far. It can be done more also.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. Well, what you talk about improvements that would improve some of the traffic flows through here. What would they be? I know there's one where you're talking about increasing lanes, where we were doing a lane digest. Now we're reversing it in certain areas. So what would be the overall improvements to improve the traffic flow in 2044?
Yes, it's hard to see on this, but there's another.
And on this.
I know, sorry.
Okay.
Unimproved section has only one through lane. That's where it causes congestion intersection, and the level is B right now.
Okay.
With the improvements, it's going to drop it back down to make it better to the level.
Yeah. To widen that area and put an additional turn lane in there. One of the things around 40th and Bridgeport, as you know, the coming out of Safeway, that's a huge bottleneck. There's 5 entries into a very short radius in there, and that could get blocked up. And that creates accidents there as well. Look in, that also establishes backup for people going into the Safeway Center there. So I'm not, an expert. I'm thinking if you're going out of that Safeway parking, no left-hand turn, just turn right. I think that would substantially enhance safety and traffic flow.
That's something we can look into and get back to that one.
All right, good. I'd like to hear your report back on that. And then, so why does the level of service decrease at 40th and Sunset with improvements to Bridgeport? We have a decrease in service level according to what I'm reading from the map.
This should not have a label on it. There's no signal there, so just ignore that one.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sorry.
Because that's a stop sign, right?
Yeah, it's a 4-way stop.
Okay, all right. And then with the outcomes of this study, what are some of your goals and long-term plans?
Yeah, I think the 2023 data is pretty telling with the way the current city flows. I think we're doing a pretty good job with the outliers of, I think, Regents and 27th, which is going to be a multi-jurisdictional type change. To me, it looks like we're doing a pretty good flow through the city. And then just for reference, I put the final sheet is kind of a traffic count. So to answer your question, you know, we project out a growth. I know you can't see, it's hard to see. So you project,
or even understand.
You put a traffic, so this is our count data from 2015, okay. And we did a similar growth rate to project on the comp plan a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And you can project a growth rate improvement, you know, a higher rate in the future, but the value we saw with this data was lower than the values we saw in 2015. So realistically speaking, and this was similar to 27th, right? The traffic had actually gone down from the 2015 data. So we believe that we're being very conservative with these 2044 projections, and traffic is actually having a tendency to decrease instead of increase at the moment. Mm-hmm. So with the projects we added to the comp plan, I think we've established that we are maintaining our level of service D minimum that we also require from the developments and the public.
Okay. So it's acceptable at level D?
Yes.
I think it's kind of problematic, but I think that's a red flag to do something. And
yeah, go ahead. You want to do it?
Okay.
The surrounding jurisdictions also adopt a level of service D, and so does WashDOT and AASHTO, the engineering highway capacities. Mm-hmm. And if we were to enforce a level of service C mm-hmm. on a development that doesn't quite match the surrounding, we would more than likely have to help pay for it, because it would drive the developments more than likely out to an area that wouldn't require $1 million improvement to the intersection.
I'm talking about the new developments in there. It will be a hardship on them?
Yes.
Okay. And once again, this document here is, how current is this?
So that traffic count is from 2015.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it was more to show that traffic trends are going down instead of up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Jordan.
Just before I have Councilmember Grassi's comment, I just wanted to add a couple of things. One is, and I shared this with our, I guess he's our Public Works Director, both Jack. I share the concerns Mayor Pro Tem had. Just because an adjacent jurisdiction settles for a lower level, in my opinion, that's lower quality on our road system, doesn't mean that we have to follow suit. I think as University Place, we can always do better, not mediocrity and settle for what our neighbors are doing when they choose to go that route. So I think we need to take a hard look at it, because we have allowed a tremendous amount of construction in multifamily, which adds to our road systems, and there's more building to come. So with that said, I really think we need to look at how do we maintain that level C. And we have options. Part of that's finished building those bypasses that I talked about earlier. As I shared with Jack. The other one is, years ago when we didn't have this need, we shrunk 67th, which was a main corridor, from a 4-lane to a 2-lane. And maybe at some point we'll have to go back and rethink our decision on that. And was it the best decision? Maybe it was then, but is it the best decision now? And then take a look at that, how we perhaps use that particular roadway. But and then I look at the data and I say, okay, so it shows that the traffic has dropped off. But what we have to remember is between 2015 and 2026, we had a 3-year window of COVID in which no one was driving. So that skews our data, I think, a little bit. And I'm not sure if we're really looking at the right data set at this point in time. So it's just something to keep in mind as we're putting all this together, trying to figure out how do we keep our city flowing and keep businesses, people coming to our businesses and people getting to and from their homes as we get into the next decade, for our communities. So just food for thought. Okay? Yes, Councilmember Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for this. I'm just trying to read.
I did that on purpose.
I feel officially older now that I can't. I want to echo what Mayor Fleming said too. I think I hear anecdotally, number one concern from residents is our traffic flow. And are we planning for growth? Are we prepared for growth? They see construction. They feel like we're not prepared. And that's just anecdotally for you to take in. But I do know it's a concern on the forefront of our residents. And to echo what Mayor Pro Tem said about that exit out of Safeway, it's always, I just think could be something. I don't agree with her though on the right-hand turn only. I don't know, but there's something that has to be every day. I do think it's a bottleneck, but this is fresh in my mind because the last couple of nights, my kids and I have been walking a lot of this corridor on Bridgeport and 40th, and so I am concerned when I see this increase. How are we taking into account the pedestrian accessibility right there, especially on the corner around the Shell station there? It's already tight for pedestrians in that sidewalk area. Is that in this plan? I'm sure it is, but is that taken into account, that cut in with this extra 2 lanes here?
Well, at this time, we don't really have any funding to be able to purchase that property. When we get to the point, yes, we will definitely be looking at some accommodations for the pedestrian also.
Because it's tight there.
Gas station has very wide driveway approaches, which takes most of the pedestrian access, makes it really unsafe for them. And then also there are so many other businesses right out, right and left out, like Mayor Pro Tem suggesting that extending that C curb, not allowing people to drive out, to left out, might be the only way to solve the problem, but I'm not saying this is the only solution. We will be looking into it and probably get back to you. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, I just looking at it, I'm like, this is already a tight, and then also the drop-in service on, is that 67th and Regents there. It looks like with those improvements, we go from a D to an F with improvements.
That is the biggest intersection we have. We got like 6 or 7 legged intersection. That's something we are going to have to probably sit down and talk to the city of Fircrest.
Right.
And definitely we have to do something about that intersection in the coming up years.
Yeah, and the proposed improvements on the tip is a roundabout, so it would no longer have a grade on it, just be uncontrolled.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons no one is able to develop that open property in the city of Fircrest due to the conflict and the intersections. They are supposed to be mitigating the level of service, but no one was able to afford that. So.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Will. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Cunningham.
Just one quick thing. So when you said afford, so then funding, and I remember Jack clarified, because I said to him that, okay, so yeah, we're not like there, but if we were to get there, do we have the funding to handle that at that time? And he reiterated that, yes, that is in the plan. So how close do we have to get to where we're just kind of being thoughtful? I mean, we heard the fire presentation, like they're being really thoughtful about 20 years from now, and I'm sure that we can see the growth around us. So like just, I guess, do we wait to the very 11th hour, or how proactive do we get if we have the funding that's sort of baked into our plan? Because that was the thing that I asked Jack, like, okay, so yeah, we're not there, but then, is it because, we need to dance around the funding opportunities, or is it just a waiting game?
They are in our 6-year TIP, and we are actively looking for grants to improve those projects. As soon as we have the funding source secured, we should be able to act on them right away.
Yeah, and something we because they're graded pretty strictly on these delays
Right.
that are seen. So,
You kind of actually have to get there.
and you can't really tell from what I showed you on this this chart, but it has the exact number that the delay is at. So the more traffic that we see in the area that's coming to that intersection, we wouldn't necessarily wait to fail or to get to that worst level of service, but you can gauge based on the delay as it's getting closer, and then we would go after those implementations.
But from a timing perspective, we're like currently actively like looking to allocate funding, or if there's opportunities that come to the table, even if we're not ready based on the grade. I'm just trying to ask if we're not going to wait till we are over our skis before
We are not really waiting for the intersections to fail. We are actively monitoring the traffic grids in the city of University Place. And whenever we have the issues, we are definitely acting on it and then proceed with whatever the modifications have to be done and look, hopefully, to find the money.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.
That's it?
Easy.
All right. Thank you all very much. Great presentation.
Well, next time we have to be harder on you then.
Yeah. All right. We're too hard. All right. Let's move to item 12, our last item on the agenda. We've got roughly about 20 minutes left here. It's a legislative proposal for the Arts and Cultural Advisory Commission for an amendment to our current policies. Mayor Pro Tem McCluskey, this is you're on.
All right, thank you. Well, as you could see from the reason why for the proposal is to codify a change for the structure of the Arts and Culture Advisory Commission that will recruit subject matter experts of interest to individuals invested interest in the growing arts and culture in the city of University Place who may not reside in the city of UP, but will have a vested interest. The subject matter experts will be known in the arts community and have established credible influence in the arts and culture. These individuals could make up one, but no more than 2 seats on the commission, therefore creating a majority of seats that will have University Place citizens on the commission structure. One of the 2 seats should be assigned to a culturalist and other successful nonprofit with marketing, fundraising, and major event productions. The reason I brought this forward for the council to consider and chew on is the Americans for the Arts and the National League of City Experts that hold advisory and subject matter experts in successful arts and culture commission, art collectives, art districts have strongly recommended in several different meetings and occasions of face-to-face and one-on-ones the structural change for our newly formed Arts and Culture Commission right out the gate so that we're off on the right feet. I also talked to several different cities in the state of Washington. One of them is the city of Port Townsend, and they strongly recommend that we have those 2 advisors on our commission from the very start. That could be part of the ongoing discussions that make up the components, the vision, the direction, and for this commission, especially at the start. Which I mentioned the subject matter experts in the document as well. So my summary of what they have been telling me for the past 6 months has spurred me on to do this request for the council to consider. Since it's strongly recommended by several different expertise, it's strongly recommended for several different cities that I had talked to when I was at the AFRICON conference in Albuquerque, that we need to get off on the right foot in the beginning, and it will save ourselves a lot of stress and heartbreak as we move along. So my summary of this, arts and culture will not thrive without added expertise, community support, and funding. The culture of art and that the city has supported and uplifted through Up for Art is a culture worthy of further professional directions on the commission throughout all of its discussions and decisions. Also, the meetings will be more productive, effective, as well as informative for our council considerations. The other component is that I didn't mention is the culturalist. They strongly recommend that we create a 5-year culture plan and to have an expert guidance on the commission for that as well, and hopefully to hold that seat for that culturist as long as we see that need, I'll say in perpetuity, so that we can always have a touch and feel for the direction of our arts in our community, because what I'm gathering, what I'm gleaning, culture will lead the arts. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just to summarize, we're looking at amending our current policies to allow 2 seats on the Arts and Cultural Commission that may, of citizens who may not reside in University Place but bring a level of expertise to help guide the commission as well as to help build that strategic plan. Did I say that right?
To open those 2 seats up, they don't necessarily have to be someone that resides outside of University Place, but if we can't find that expertise on our commission applications, we should seek to have people from outside of our community to be in that place. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that might be more in line of a culturalist, because for the business of arts through a nonprofit lens with marketing and fundraising and major event productions, we do have that expertise within University Place that we could ask if they would like to apply.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions for the Mayor Pro Tem? We'll start with Councilmember Figueroa, and then Councilmember Grassi, and then Councilmember Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. I think in any commission we should probably be looking at the best expertise we can get. It doesn't always happen, but certainly, we can attempt to do that and to highlight it. I think that's a good thing. I think that certainly the recruitment should always be in University Place, and if there was no one, and not just for University Place, but anybody else, if it's for that position, because I think it should be for the commission, period. And if we want to maybe somehow detail out to those applying and or to the commission, the council members that are reviewing or interviewing, that they should be looking for that, and applicants should be highlighting that, because if we don't know that, or the applicants don't know that, we may never get that. Even if we go outside. So we have to be fair to UP residents as well, saying we are looking for this specific talent or skills. And so that would be the first thing. And if we just can't find anybody, then I'm game for outside only under the condition of they don't have any voting rights. I'm not going, I would never go for, we had that before, it did not work out right, and it was issues and problems, and so I'm not for outside citizens to vote on what UP should have. I'm just not there. But as non-voting members, be fine. I don't know why they have to be in a commission. It should be maybe as an ad hoc committee to the commission, and let the commission to say, we would like to have a, a culturist, and maybe something else. Maybe who knows what they may want. Let the commission maybe dictate and say, hey, staff, we really like to have this expertise, and can you, to be part of this commission as that ad hoc committee, and can we have the council go and do a recruitment? I think that's another way to look at it. And a better way, because the commission, obviously we're going to pick those that have a real interest in this whole business of cultural arts, advisory committee, and maybe they may want to think of something else they may need. And I know what you said. There's some expertise here that they said this would be a good thing to do, but if it's up to the council. But I think that as an ad hoc committee would be better, and I'm just talking for myself. And if it is going to be a part of the commission, it should be non-voted members, and maybe I don't know how many people did we pick for the commission, whatever that is. If it's 6 or 8, if it's 8, these 2 members should be 9. Okay, these 2 members should be in addition as non-voting. So if we wanted non-voting members, then let's pick non-voting members from University Place. And if we wanted to add because of the expertise, let's have them as if they're outside. If they're inside, then we just have non with that expertise. But if they're from outside of University Place, we should have them as an addition to the 9 members. So that's my comments there. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Grassi?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I agree. I think we should have, with Mayor Pro Tem, I think that we should get the best expertise we can for this commission. The only thing I was candid in my one-on-ones, and I will be candid here. I don't love the idea of tying our hands so specifically to culturalist and nonprofit marketing, fundraiser, and major event productions. I think there are for-profit marketing, fundraiser, all of those things that I don't know if it would behoove us to tie our hands so strictly to be that specific. And I have been to many a conference already that the title was given to the person as a culturalist. And I'm not sure that's the idea of the culturalist that you have for this commission. So I think that new title is new. And it's very broad. And so I would hate for us to put ourselves in a position where this person is a culturalist, but it doesn't fit the idea that you had for this commission. So I would support something that says these are 2 roles that we are trying to fill, and they can be inside or outside of University Place. I am supportive of that. This might make this, these are the pieces of gold that we're looking for, but I just feel like it's very specific. So I would love to see this, as we're getting this started, to have the best chance at success, to have it be as flexible as possible, as art is, and see how it grows in minds, and give yourself the flexibility, the commission interview, the flexibility to find a great person that might be an artist, that might be for-profit, that might have great fundraising capability. They might live in Ruston, and they're going to be great on this commission. So that's my thought.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Cunningham.
So I think a little bit of everybody's comments. I do think that we're pigeonholing ourselves a little bit to be uberly specific. I do think that we're being assumptive that what we're looking for is not in our city. And I think before we even get started, we're assuming that we don't have any of those things there. And I think we're just getting into the phase of promoting this and opening the application process. And, yes, it is a very different commission compared to the other ones that we already have. But I think that we have a little bit of tradition baked into what our commissions look like. And I think that this one is very different, of course, because it is arts and culture, and it's a little bit more, I guess, open-minded, as all the other commissions are very specific, so it can kind of go anywhere with the Arts and Culture Commission. But I do think that, obviously at the end of the day, if we truly cannot find what we're looking for to get this off the ground, then I think, it's fine to seek outside. But I don't think that that should be the first cornerstone that we start off in. I think that we just shouldn't assume that our city doesn't possess what we're looking for. So I think we just kind of let this organically materialize the way that, because I don't know that any of us really truly know exactly what we want this to look like anyways, to determine who needs to be in the role to make it happen, So I think we're kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit on specific ideas of what we think this is going to look like, and then what exactly we need. I want to ask you, the places that you seek the information from, how long did it take them to find these specific roles? And then once the commission got up and running and they started producing things to add to the city's, perspective, what was that timeline like?
Some of them didn't take the time and they learned the hard way, for one. I'm not sure exactly how long that it took them to recruit. I think that is indicative of who applies. There are some cities that already had a nonprofit arts group. There's other cities that had an adjunct art group that was advisory to the city. So it's all different dynamics that has occurred and created the response. I didn't really mean to indicate that this was going to be dedicated seats to people that are non-residents, but to also save those. I really meant to save those seats for those those expertise, to have it on in a daily, ongoing, monthly discussion going forward. And one of the reasons why they recommended a nonprofit is that a nonprofit has a little more flexibility than a for-profit in the engagement with the city partnership for fundraising with different events and things. But, that's something that we consider too. I'm not really sure, but from their point of view, gleaning grants on behalf of the city and creating fundraising mechanisms for the city for the arts and in the cultural plan, it's more dynamic with a nonprofit. That was their reasoning. I'm just presenting that. Anyway.
Okay, Councilmember Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'll go back to part of my statement, that is, let the 9 commissioners that we do figure out if they need, what needs they may have, and say, and the council, the staff can say, you need anything. This, when they first establish themselves, what else do you need? How would you like to get that need? Let the commission do that and see what comes out of that, and we can then accommodate if it really needs council approval or a vote, or maybe they can do it on their own. Who knows? We don't know anything until we put together that 9 commission. I think this is jumping the gun personally, but I think we should wait, get that 9 commission and see what we get, and then get some feedback from them where we could assist that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, this isn't really jumping the gun. It's trying to get in front of it. We can create this with whatever options that we want, but certainly these expertise on the commission at the very start is essential in their minds from the many people that I talk to. So I'm just bringing, you sent me off to a AFTACON conference, and I've been researching and investigating this for well over 2 years, the Arts and Culture Commission. And then once we put it into a direction for council action, I created relationships with people that I thought would help along the line to bring information back to council, and this is what I am doing. With a culture piece, to establish a cultural plan for five years. If we choose not to have a seat for the culturists, we actually should go out and get a consultant for that. They highly recommend that if we're to establish culture, diversity, inclusion for this commission when we go forward with the arts.
Okay. Any other questions? One more, Councilman.
Sorry, it'll be very quick. Did we create like a curriculum or a guiding practice of what we want this to look like? So on day one, when all these commissioners get in here, or are they conceptualizing that on their own? Just because I'm just curious.
My understanding is, like yours, there's no conceptualization where there should be.
Okay.
With that, we left it pretty organic. But I can come back with something a little more solidified. But once the commission is together, the the Americans for the Arts and also the National League of City Expertise will be very interested in what those outcomes were from the initial commission meetings, and I can take that information back to them. When I meet with the MIDL from the Americans for Art, there is a collective of 2 to 5 citizens in University Place that are part of that discussion as well.
Okay. Well, I guess it's my chance to weigh in. You know, I want to thank all the council members for their thoughtful comments, and I think they're all, in one form or fashion, legitimate with regards to this proposal. I think that if we're looking for the best of the best and just get out of the starting gate the right way, then I think we need to look at it from that perspective. We sent the Mayor Pro Tem to an arts and cultural conference, I think it was, for lack of a better word. And she's done her homework, and she's brought back what she's learned from that in her proposal. I'm willing to support it, but I think the comments from Councilmember Grassi were well said, that maybe instead of being so restrictive, maybe we make it both profit and nonprofit, and let the interviewers and the commission, and when I say interviewers, the council interviewers and the commission determine which direction to go at that point. I do like Councilmember Cunningham's comment of, you know, approach these applicants of University Place residents first to fill those seats. If we can't fill them, then we should never leave ourselves exposed to not bringing in the brightest and best to support our city. I appreciated Councilmember Figueroa's comment about having them on the commission, but they can't vote. But my opinion is, if we're going to appoint a commissioner to do the work of the council, then they should have a vote regardless of where they lay their heads at night. You know, their commitment when they get appointed, when they're recommended by the council committee and they're appointed by the council, their commitment then is to University Place, and that's how I see it on there. So, you know, without any, if there's no strong opposition to what I'm proposing here, perhaps we could move forward with legislation with those key points, if you're amenable to that.
Yes, Mayor, I am, and I can also circle back because I hear on the council that we might be a little confused on the culturist. I know people are out there that call themselves that, as Councilmember Grassi alluded to, and they are not at all what we would like here. So let me circle back with that and maybe a job description or some expectations so you guys can chew on those things as well, because that's really strategic and important on how we drive the arts in our city as well.
Perhaps you can work with the staff to come up with that definition and bring back to the council a proposal, and we can chew on it. We can vote it up, down, sideways, whichever direction. Does that sound okay with everyone here?
Well, I'm not agreeing to that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I want to put it in the record. I think I heard something different, and so, you know, I think it needs to be, well, I guess it will come to a vote. We're missing 2 members, but it will come to a vote. So is the direction to bring back an amendment to the resolution?
I think I have...
the commission, right?
I have a majority head nod up here at the council, and then we can debate it again and vote it at that time.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you have direction?
Such as it is.
All right. So with that, we're right on time.
Mayor, may I have a...
You have like
clarification.
15 seconds.
Okay, really quick. Am I understanding another study session or consideration?
No, this is a consideration at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that said, no further business before council. The council stands adjourned.
Hey, you did it.
That was
right on the dot.